Chapter 8:12. Not bad. A hint of approval flashed across Li Moshen's eyes. It's all thanks to the information you provided us. You reminded us of the importance of that lame youngster. Flower Rain didn't have the time to deal with these matters and accompany you to the Tang sect. However, the other members of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade have already found the lame youngster named Wen Tao. He's already preparing to enter Yinjing University, and it was Ning Guangyao who secretly sent him there. What we find strange is that Wen Tao must have known something that he shouldn't have, but he wasn't killed. There's something fishy about this. Our informant in the Ning family reported that Wen Tao was transported to Yinjing on the same day as Luo Tsuishan, but only Wen Tao survived. He was brought to the Ning family's residence to meet Ning Guangyao, while Luo Tsuishan was declared dead. Yang Cheng allowed a weird smile. I knew that guy was unusual, but I didn't expect him to be so calculative. This isn't because he's lucky. He must have something on him that's worth Premier Ning's attention. We've been secretly monitoring Wen Tao, but it's unlikely that we'll be able to get any useful information from him, Li Moshen said. And the latest confirmed information is that Luo Tsuishan's corpse was indeed taken away by Yin Buin. How can you be so sure? Did you find it? Yang Cheng asked. Li Moshen and Kai Yunqing's expressions turned complicated. It's a long story, so I can't tell you everything. However, there are two people who played a crucial role, Kai Yunqing said solemnly. One is Ning Guodong from the Ning family, and the other is Yang Lai. Hearing the name Yang Lai, Yang Cheng couldn't help but frown. He didn't say a word. Kai Yunqing said, Yang Lai's condition is very strange. Because he had a conflict with you before, you crippled his martial arts. However, not long after, he recovered to his original state. Not only was he not crippled, but he also displayed a very strong combat power in the few missions he carried out. I've discussed this with Grey Robe and Abbess Yun Miao from the Group of 8. Yang Lai's strength might have already entered the Xiantian realm. What? Him? Even though Kai Ning was usually calm, her reaction at this moment was intense. She originally thought that among the younger generation, other than the freak Yang Cheng, no one would enter the Xiantian realm faster than her. She didn't expect that Yang Lai would beat her to it. Furthermore, he was crippled by Yang Cheng once. Yang Cheng's face was gloomy. I personally crippled his meridians and dispersed his internal energy. How could he recover in such a short period of time? Normally, it's impossible, but Yin Bun is a genius scientist who has always created miracles, Li Moshen sighed. Yang Cheng, I admit that you're very capable, but don't underestimate Yin Buin. Yin Buin's personality isn't good, and our higher-ups have been paying attention to him for a long time. However, the impetus he can bring to our research community in Huaxia is unprecedented. In the entire world, other than Britain's Princess Jane, no one can be compared to Yin Buin in terms of scientific talent. Therefore, we've always cherished talent and didn't restrict him much. He's doing biochemical experiments. I don't believe that a pervert like him wouldn't use living people as experimental subjects. It's just that in your eyes, the lives of ordinary people aren't as important as developing weapons. I can understand that. Anyway, I'm not much better than you guys, so there's no need to beat around the bush with me. Yang Cheng sneered. The two of them muttered to themselves awkwardly for a while before Kai Yunqing said, Yang Lai, after coming into frequent contact with Yin Buin, he gradually recovered and became stronger. Moreover, recently, he often appeared in Yin Buin's exclusive military research base. And after the ceremony for Luo Tsuishan's memorial, Ning Guodong received Yang Lai's invitation and secretly went to Yin Buin's laboratory. So, as long as we enter the laboratory to investigate, we'll most likely be able to find out the truth. Yang Cheng asked. This matter requires the approval of the military. After all, the laboratory belongs to the military. Speaking of which, your old man can play a big role. If he speaks up, the military will most likely agree to let us in. Li Moshen smiled. I'll borrow your name to let old man Yang show up. Don't blame me. Yang Cheng said nonchalantly, he's not a fool. Can't he tell if you're lying to him or not? Li Moshen laughed. All right, that kid from our family, Li Dun, is also involved in the investigation. Now that we've confirmed that Tang Xian from the Tang family has a close relationship with Yin Buin, it's in line with our previous speculation. However, Yin Buin didn't reveal anything, so we can't forcefully capture anyone from the Tang family for questioning. So, there are many things that we'll have to investigate further. Yang Cheng sensed something fishy and raised his eyebrows. Did you say, we? Li Mozhen said matter-of-factly, of course it's us. You're involved in the matter of Luo Tsuishan. Also, Yang Lai and Ning Guodong are related to you. Even the Ning family is related to your family, isn't it? Seeing the cunning look in the old man's eyes, Yang Cheng understood. It seemed that the fact that Lin Ruoxi was the blood of the Ning family was nothing special to the heads of the security bureau, like the Li family. Do you want me to investigate for you? Yang Cheng curled his lips. I don't have the time to do that. I'm still busy dealing with family matters. If they come to provoke me, I'll just kill them and be done with it. Look at you. Why are you so murderous? Li Mozhen shook his head. Killing people can save you trouble for a while, but it will cause endless trouble in the future. If you kill any one of them, it will only make your life in Huaxia unstable. Even if you make a move, you must have evidence. I've discussed it with General Kai. Currently, the biggest mystery is what Yin Buin, the central figure, is up to and what secrets are hidden in his laboratory. Also, we need to secretly investigate the relationship between that lame Wen Tao, Luo Tsuishan, and the Ning family. He must be hiding some secrets. Yang Cheng thought about it. It was fine if he didn't have to do it himself. Helping them would also help him get rid of the boring bugs. Why not? Thus, he said, tell me then. As long as it doesn't violate my principle of neutrality, I don't mind helping you. Naturally, it won't involve your international affiliation, Kai Yunqing said. Yellow Flame Iron Brigade doesn't have enough manpower, and we can't send ordinary agents to participate in this level of investigation. That's why we thought of borrowing some reinforcements from you. You happen to have a very suitable troop in your hands that can enter Huaxia without anyone noticing. You mean Japan's Yamada sect? Yang Cheng could only think of that group of ninjas. Their skin color and appearance were the same as the people of Huaxia. They were indeed suitable for this kind of mission. Li Mozhen nodded and said, we'll close one eye and let those jonins of Yamada's sect enter Huaxia. After all, since they're loyal to you, you don't have to worry about anyone maliciously sabotaging it. As a reward for your help, I can allow you to send more members of Sea Eagles into Zhonghai to protect the people around you. I just received news today that your wife, Miss Lin, is in some trouble. If there are more members of Sea Eagles, I'm afraid you can have more on Sheen. Yang Cheng was delighted. This was a good offer, so he agreed. Kai Yunqing said, there's one more thing. Although it doesn't seem possible, it can be included in the scope of investigation. Previously on the Pacific Ocean, if the figure that looked exactly like you wasn't you, then it must be someone with divine power who impersonated you. I vaguely feel that it might have something to do with Yin Buin, because he could improve Yang Lai's combat power by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time. He must have some special ability. This time, Yang Cheng's heart sank. Kai Yunqing's words suddenly reminded him of something. Could the Godstone have fallen into Yin Buin's hands? If Yin Buin studied the Godstone and cloned his own body, then used the strength of his body to create a god that could use the law of space, then it might be possible. This situation was the most terrifying. One must know that a god who disregarded the Treaty of Gods and was like a fighting machine could use the law of space at will. The threat level could not be compared to other things at all. What if it wasn't one, but a group of them? Since Yin Buin is already so dangerous, why don't I kill him directly? Isn't that more direct and effective? Yang Cheng was ready to kill. No way, Li Mozhen hurriedly said, putting aside the fact that the Yin family is now a powerful family. And although Yin Buin is very suspicious, he has not done anything to harm Huaxia. We can't rely on these half-truths to erase his contributions to Huaxia. Before we get to the bottom of this, we must not touch Yin Buin. If we kill the wrong person, wouldn't it be a great loss for Huaxia? Yang Cheng was annoyed. Cooperating with the government was indeed a troublesome matter. He waved his hand. Do as you please. Anyway, if he wants to do something I can't tolerate, I don't care about the rules. After the matter was settled, Li Mozhen and Kai Yunxing discussed with Tang Dianshan and the other members of the Tang sect about the allocation of manpower. They hoped to gain some benefits from the ancient martial arts sect during this period of time. Tang Dianshan and the others had originally planned to stay out of this. However, the elders of the Tang sect had just been controlled by an unknown person, almost causing the Tang sect to cease to exist in name only. They no longer felt that the Tang sect could stay out of this. They agreed to send some of their strongest disciples to the Security Bureau to assist in this case. This was also to further improve their relationship with the government, in case something happened to the Tang sect. After the call ended, Yang Cheng told Tang Dianshan and the others that he planned to return to Zhonghai the next morning. After all, there was no point in staying any longer. There was still a lot of work to be done. The members of the Tang sect did not try to persuade him to stay. Faced with Yang Cheng's unpredictable personality, they were also on tenterhooks. Kai Ning naturally left with him. However, she wanted to go to Beijing. Hearing about the undercurrents in Beijing, as a woman of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade, she began to worry about her father's safety. The two of them returned to a side room. Kai Ning smiled faintly and was about to return to her room when Yang Cheng pulled her back. Kai Ning was taken aback. She didn't know what Yang Cheng was doing. Ninger, I originally wanted to wait until I've perfected my understanding of the cultivation method before teaching it to you. But since you're going back to Beijing, why don't I teach you what I can teach you tonight? It should be of great help to you when you enter the Xiantian stage, Yang Chan said softly with a glimmer of light in his eyes. Chapter 8:13. The next morning, which happened to be Sunday, a white BMW sped out of the parking lot outside the Zhonghai International Airport. It was Yang Cheng. He had returned to Zhonghai by plane early in the morning and was on his way home. Huilin's latest song was playing in the car. Yang Cheng was in a good mood and hummed a few lines from time to time. He spent the whole night in Kai Ning's room in the Tang family fortress. Of course, the two didn't do anything intimate. Yang Cheng explained some of the cultivation techniques he had learned to Kai Ning and answered some of her questions at the same time. This kind of thing couldn't be sloppy. After all, if he did something wrong, he could suffer internal injuries or even go berserk. Therefore, it was rare for Yang Cheng to be so serious. It wasn't until dawn that the two booked flights to Yin, Jin, and Zhonghai were about to arrive that they took the car sent by the Tang sect to the airport and said their goodbyes. The reason why Yang Cheng was in a good mood was because he had learned a lot during the process of teaching Kai Ning last night. Through the questions and answers, he managed to guide her in an orderly manner. Gradually, Yang Cheng was able to establish the backbone of his teaching. Then, he made up for the parts that he was still confused about. It could be said that Yang Cheng was very confident in teaching women on the path of cultivation. He also knew where to start. This trip to the Tang sect in Sichuan was very rewarding. Not only did he answer many of his basic questions, but he also achieved his original goal. Half an hour later, Yang Cheng returned home. He had only been away for 4 or 5 days, but he already missed it. Yang Cheng couldn't help but realize that it was difficult for women to follow him to live abroad. He had already treated this place as his home, and he didn't want to go overseas to avoid those troubles. In the courtyard, the lush yellow poplar trees and magnolia trees had spread out their huge canopies, echoing each other. A natural fragrance permeated the courtyard. A familiar figure wearing an apron stood on the grass, watering a few osmanthus trees and cycad trees. Guo Shuahua had a gentle smile on her face, taking care of the flowers and trees as if they were her own children. She didn't even notice that Yang Cheng had returned. Luckily, you're not the only one at home. Otherwise, we wouldn't even know when a thief came. Yang Cheng smiled as he walked up from behind. Guo Shuahua was a little startled. She turned around and scolded him with a smile. Child, why are you always like this? You should inform me before coming home, and you even scare your mother. It's not like we're going to the countryside. Why did you tell me in advance? Yang Cheng touched his stomach and said, I haven't had breakfast yet. Is there any leftover at home? Guo Shuahua smiled. Ask your mother, Wang, if you want to go. We've already eaten. Yang Cheng ran into the house excitedly. Mother Wang was mopping the floor. She wasn't too surprised to see Yang Chang suddenly coming home. After all, this had happened several times before. Hearing that Yang Chang hadn't eaten yet, she immediately brought out the leftover breakfast from the kitchen. Fortunately, it was summer, so they didn't have to eat it hot. Yang Chang was also a glutton. He wasn't used to not eating. While chewing on the steamed bun, he asked, "Mother Wang, why aren't Ruashi and Jinxiu here? Isn't Jinxiu on vacation?" Mother Wang was wiping the furniture in the living room. She turned around and smiled. That child Jinxiu went back to the orphanage to help. She didn't get to go back for her exams. She wants to take care of the old dean before she goes to university. After all, it's tiring to take care of a child in summer. Yang Chang suddenly understood. What about Ruashi? Isn't it Sunday today? She's also working? Miss. Mother Wang's expression was a little strange. Son-in-law. Did you say something strange to Miss? Miss seems to have changed these 2 days. What do you mean? Yang Chang was puzzled. On the second day of your business trip, Miss suddenly woke up early and didn't go to work. Instead, she wore running shoes and went out for a jog. Mother Wang said doubtfully. You have to know that I've watched Miss grow up. I've never seen Miss exercise at home. Yang Chang was amused. This girl was quite obedient. However, thinking about it, the temptation of being able to stay young was huge for any woman, so it wasn't strange. Mother Wang said approvingly, this is also good. Nowadays, young people are weak. Running can also increase their resistance. Yang Chang smiled and nodded, but he felt a little regretful in his heart. Even if he started to exercise now, it was actually very late. If he wanted Lin Ruashi and the other girls to improve greatly in a short period of time, the chances were too small. He had to think of other ways. After eating for a while, a woman wearing a pink Nike sports t-shirt and light green hot pants walked in. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail, and her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. Her face was red, and with her outfit, she looked like a lovely strawberry on a green leaf. This was the first time Yang Chang saw Lin Ruashi dressed like this. It was completely different from her usual strict and elegant makeup. Not to mention the intoxicating blush after sweating. The proud long legs under the 2 hot pants were enough to attract people's attention. This was completely the body proportion of a model. Yang Ching couldn't help but lick his lips with his tongue. He stared at the woman's 2 legs, thinking about how it would feel to touch them, and couldn't move his eyes away. Lin Ruashi was surprised at first because she suddenly saw Yang Chang at home. Then, after noticing what Yang Cheng's fiery gaze was staring at, she asked in embarrassment and annoyance, "Have you seen enough?" "No," Yang Cheng replied numbly. Lin Ruashi was about to faint. Originally, it was nothing but being stared at by Yang Cheng like this. She felt particularly uncomfortable. Yang Cheng suddenly quivered and asked, "Wife, where did you go to run?" Lin Ruashi looked at him and murmured, "In the park on the west side. I ran around it." "What's wrong, what?" Yang Cheng suddenly stood up and said gloomily, "How can you wear this to run in the park? Aren't those old men staring at you?" "No way, no way. From tomorrow onwards, you have to wear long pants. You definitely can't show so much meat." Lin Ruashi finally understood that this guy was actually jealous. She felt a little sweet in her heart, but she also felt that a man like this was very childish. "I'm not the only one who runs. Do you think everyone is so free to look around? Not everyone is as thick-skinned as you, staring at a woman's legs without blinking." Lin Ruashi teased. Yang Cheng persistently said, "I can openly stare at you because we have a marriage certificate. You can say that I'm unreasonable, but in any case, you're only allowed to wear this kind of hot pants at home. When you go out to run, wear long pants. Otherwise, if I find out, I'll carry you back from outside." Lin Ruashi couldn't do anything about him. This scoundrel was really capable of doing what he said. In order not to embarrass herself on the street, she could only nod and agree. Fortunately, she didn't lack any clothes. She could just ask her subordinates to give her some long sweatpants. After returning upstairs and taking a hot shower, Lin Ruashi changed into a casual white dress. When she came downstairs, Yang Cheng had already finished his meal and was watching the news. Lin Ruashi ignored him and went straight to the kitchen. Not long after, Lin Ruoshi took the snacks she wanted and sat on the other sofa to watch TV with Yang Cheng. The two of them rarely had the chance to sit together and watch TV on the weekends. Although it was a normal time for a normal couple, it was something the two of them couldn't imagine in the past. It was either a Cold War or they were busy with their own things. Yang Cheng subconsciously glanced at the woman and saw a box of glutinous rice balls in a familiar packaging. "Baby, isn't this from the Zhao's glutinous rice ball shop? You went to buy the glutinous rice balls?" Yang Cheng asked. As usual, Lin Ruoshi held the big glutinous rice ball in her hands and nibbled on it like a chick pecking at rice. She shook her head and said, "Auntie Ma brought it for me." "Auntie Ma?" Yang Cheng frowned. "You asked Qianni's mother to bring you glutinous rice balls? What's wrong with that? It's convenient anyway." Lin Ruoshi said, "A few days ago I saw Auntie Ma taking care of the small vegetable sprouts in the yard every day. I asked her why she didn't have to go to work. She said she lost her job, so I asked her if she was willing to help out at the glutinous rice ball shop. She said she liked the job and has been going to work these days." Yang Cheng didn't expect Lin Ruoshi to be in the mood to care about Ma Guifeng's job. He only felt that the woman in front of him was especially cute. He smiled warmly and said, "I knew my wife was the most generous. She even wanted to take care of Qianni's mother. Looks like I'll get along well with Qianni in the future." "Hey, don't give me that." Lin Ruoshi glanced at him coldly. "Don't think I didn't hear it. Just now you thought that I deliberately ordered Auntie Ma to do things for me, and that I was deliberately making things difficult for them, right?" Yang Cheng quickly shook his head and denied it. "I'm just curious. Why would I think of you like that? Didn't you always know how vicious my heart is?" Lin Ruoshi's eyes were filled with disbelief. Yang Cheng rubbed his head and muttered, "We agreed that the 1-year peace agreement hasn't expired yet. No matter what, there's still half a year left. You have to keep your word when doing business." When Lin Ruoshi heard the 1-year agreement, she became angry. She forcefully bit down on a meatball and ignored the man. After the news was over, Yang Cheng looked at the time, stood up and said, "I won't be coming back for lunch. I have something to do. Tell Mother Wang to do less." When Lin Ruoshi heard this, she frowned. "Why are you leaving so soon after coming back?" Hearing the reluctance in the woman's tone, Yang Cheng was filled with joy. Although he looked cold on the surface, he still cared a lot about him in his heart. Thus, he smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm not going far away. I'm just going next door." Halfway through his sentence, Yang Cheng's back was covered in cold sweat. Damn it, how could he say it? Chapter 814. Sure enough, Lin Ruoshi's body was so cold that it could freeze the rice ball in her hand. She snorted and said, "So you're going to accompany your lover next door? What a good man. You just went home to eat 2 steamed buns, and now you're going to find your lover for lunch. You're even saving food for the family. You better not come back for dinner and tomorrow's breakfast." Yang Cheng only felt that his teeth were numb. He smiled stiffly and said, "Ruoshi, listen to me. I'm going to give Xiangwei the skills I got from the Tang sect this time. Of course, I also said that I would teach you, but you've only been training for a few days. At least you have to improve your physical fitness to the point where I think you can start." Although Lin Ruoshi felt uncomfortable, she also knew that she couldn't stop the man. She snorted and said, "Then when can I start?" It would be a lie to say that she was not interested in the method that Yang Cheng said to prevent aging. Lin Ruoshi was quite tempted. Yang Cheng thought for a while and said, "At least wait until your qi and blood reach the level of ordinary people. You sit in the office every day. You look healthy, but you're actually very weak. In the future, exercise more and eat more nutritious food. Don't eat glutinous rice balls all the time. Within 2 months, you should be able to start basic cultivation. Otherwise, the effect will be greatly reduced if you start rashly." 2 months was not too long. Lin Ruoshi nodded and didn't say much. In fact, Lin Ruoshi wouldn't be too uncomfortable for other women. Most of the time, she didn't have the strength to put on a straight face with Yang Cheng because of this. Even Lin Ruoshi herself didn't notice the change in her mentality. Yang Cheng wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Fortunately, his attitude was sincere, and he barely passed this hurdle. Soon, Yang Cheng went out. He didn't bother to go through the main door to Qiangwei's house. He directly climbed over the wall and came to the courtyard next door. After knocking on the door, the person who opened the door for Yang Cheng was not Xiang Wei, but Imo Qinni, who happened to be at home on Sunday. The woman, who had regained her confidence, seemed to be in good spirits. Her face was rounder than before, as if she had just taken a shower in the morning. Her hair was still wet, and a few strands hung on the side of her face. When she saw Yang Cheng, she smiled and said, "You're back from Sichuan province?" Yang Cheng looked at Imo Qinni's blue-patterned thin silk dress, which outlined her graceful curves. Her white lotus-like arms were exposed to the air, and her body exuded the fragrance of a woman's body mixed with her shower gel. Opening the door dressed like this? What if we run into strangers? Yang Cheng said unhappily. Imo Qinni leaned forward and hooked her arms around the man's neck. "I opened the door because I saw you through the peephole. Besides, Xiang Wei's men are guarding this place. How can I be in danger?" Yang Cheng checked and confirmed that there were indeed people from Red Thorn Society nearby. Only then did he feel relieved. Imo Qinni asked with anticipation, "Did you bring back any specialties from Sichuan province this time?" Yang Cheng slapped his forehead. He forgot that it was Imo Qinni's hometown. This woman must be greedy. Shan Shan smiled. Next time. Imo Qinni bared her teeth. "I knew you didn't take me seriously. I didn't bring it for other women," Yang Cheng said innocently. Imo Qinni smiled. "I'm just teasing you. I know you don't have that concept. I'll be flattered if you bring it for me." Only then did Yang Cheng realize that he had been fooled. Without caring about anything else, he squatted down and picked up the woman's round and beautiful legs, lifting her fragrant body onto his shoulders. Imo Qinni exclaimed and patted Yang Cheng's back. "What are you doing?" "I just took a shower." "You can't waste it after taking a shower." As they spoke, Yang Cheng rushed into the living room and put Imo Qinni on the hard leather sofa. Then, he threw himself on her. Last time, Imo Qinni's body was weak, so they didn't do anything in the woman's room. This time, after a few days apart, the two of them felt like they were going to have sex. Yang Cheng realized that there was only Imo Qinni in the house, so he was even more unscrupulous. He kissed the woman's small mouth, and his hands moved up and down, caressing her full chest and plump buttocks. The temperature in the room rose quickly. After a while, the two of them had completely taken off their clothes, and their hot bodies were glued together. Both of them were familiar with each other. It had been a while since Imo Qinni had tasted the taste of a man and a woman. For a woman of her age who had tasted it, a man's fiery aura was an irresistible poison. As if they were doing soft gymnastics, Yang Cheng held the woman in front of him. Imo Qinni's lower abdomen and thighs were pressed tightly against the sofa's backrest. She leaned back and turned her head away. They continued to kiss passionately, and the lower part of their bodies gradually moved closer. Finally, the woman let out a deep moan. Countless emotions seemed to explode in her throat, and her eyes lost focus. The two of them rolled from the sofa to the fluffy carpet and were easily picked up by Yang Cheng. She was like an octopus, holding onto the man's broad back. The hall was filled with the sound of birds singing, and the passion was like fire. Imo Qinni was completely lost in the sudden rush of pleasure in the morning, enjoying the intertwining of passion and love in a bumpy way. However, just as Yang Cheng was about to put the woman on the big dining table for the next round of sprint, a sudden warning flashed across his mind. Not good. In the next second, the entire house let out a loud bang. Boom! A glaring flame suddenly burst out in broad daylight. The flames were mixed with thick black smoke, spewing out from all the windows of the house in all directions. From afar, it looked like a unique house had been engulfed by a large area of fire without any warning. The strong explosives also destroyed a large area of the house next to it. If it wasn't for the isolation belt in the middle, it might have collapsed as well. Even so, the houses in this area were completely destroyed. In the midst of the fire, Yang Cheng flew out of the thick smoke with Imo Qinni in his arms. The scorching temperature around them and the strong shockwave of the explosion did not harm the two of them at all. Without hesitation, Yang Cheng flew to the balcony on the second floor of his house. He turned around to look at the area next door that had been blown into ruins and was still burning. Yang Cheng's eyes were also burning. At that moment, Mo Chinny was completely scared out of her wits. Her heart almost stopped at that moment. At that moment, she could only hug Yang Cheng tightly. Even though she was naked, the woman could not react in time. After a moment of contemplation, Yang Cheng turned around and walked into his room without hesitation. He put Mo Chinny on the bed and walked to the wardrobe. He took out two simple short-sleeved shirts that could be worn by women and threw them on the bed. Then, he changed into a pair of clean clothes. When he turned around, he saw that Mo Chinny's eyes were filled with tears. She was sitting there motionlessly. Yang Cheng felt a pang of heartache. He walked over to grab Mo Chinny's hand and said gently, "Chinny, it's okay. I'm here. You change your clothes first and wait for me at home. I suspect that someone wants to harm Xiangwei and me. Now, I'm going to deal with this matter. Don't be afraid. Everything will be fine." The sudden horror made Mo Chinny come back to her senses. She nodded with tears in her eyes and said, "Go ahead. Be careful." Yang Chun leaped off the balcony and went downstairs. In the courtyard downstairs, when they heard the explosion, Lin Ruoshi, Mother Wang, and Guo Xiuhua ran out of the house. They stared blankly at the ruins beside them. Seeing that Yang Cheng flew down from the second floor safely, the three of them were delighted. Lin Ruoshi immediately ran up and looked at Yang Cheng from head to toe. Her eyes were red as she asked, "You scared me to death. Didn't you say that you were going to Xiangwei? Why did the house suddenly explode? How are you? Are you hurt?" Yang Cheng smiled and shook his head. "This little trouble is not enough to embarrass me. What about the others in the house? Where are Xiangwei, Chinny, and Anima?" Yang Cheng said, "I suspect that someone deliberately used remote-controlled explosives to harm me and Xiangwei. I'm going to look for Xiangwei now. I just saved Chinny, and she's in my room. Take care of her first. She's quite frightened. As for the rest, wait for me to come back." After saying that, Yang Cheng touched his pocket and remembered that his phone was in his pants pocket. Now that his pants were blown up, his phone was naturally gone. Cursing under his breath, Yang Cheng asked, "Who brought your phone out? Let me use it first." Guo Xiuhua hurriedly walked over and shoved her phone into Yang Cheng's hands. She was someone who had seen big scenes before. Although she was worried, she remained calm. "Take mine, son. Be careful." Yang Cheng took the phone and gave him a reassuring look. As he walked out, he dialed Molin's number. The call was immediately connected. On the other end, Molin said anxiously, "Your Majesty Pluto, I've been trying to contact you, but your line is not working. Miss Xiangwei is in trouble now." Yang Cheng's heart sank. He said angrily, "What do you mean? Didn't I ask you to send people to protect her?" Molin said nervously, "Your Majesty, please calm down. I did send Adeline to protect Miss Xiangwei, but this incident is not something we can predict. Miss Xiangwei has been practicing martial arts and strengthening her body at the peak of Mount Sun in the north of Zhonghai. I also sent Adeline to follow her. However, just now, when Miss Xiangwei went down the mountain, there was a violent explosion on the mountainside, causing a large-scale landslide. We don't know when the enemy secretly planted the explosives, so we were completely caught off guard." Chapter 8:15. Hearing this, Yang Cheng's eyes were filled with murderous intent. "You'd better tell me what happened to my woman." Molin swallowed and said, "Adeline entered the explosion range as soon as possible and took protective measures. Fortunately, there were some places to hide in the valley. Apart from some minor injuries, they're not in danger. But because of the landslide, a large amount of rocks and mud covered the area, and the wreckage of the trees also blocked many areas. Adeline couldn't have come out on her own. She told me about this through the wireless communication device." Yang Cheng had never been to Mount Sun, but he had a map in his mind, so he could narrow down the area. But at this time, it would be too late to search by car. So he said, "Molin, I'll go there myself. You just need to send people to watch over my house. Also, ask the professionals to check the houses of the people around me and see if there are any other long-range explosives." Yang Cheng was worried that the other party would use unscrupulous means to ambush other women in order to blackmail him. so he had to check again. Mullen didn't dare to delay and immediately agreed. Although Yang Cheng didn't want to use his unconventional cultivation, Xiang Wei's life was more important at this critical moment. If the other party had other means besides explosives, Xiang Wei would be in danger if she couldn't fight back. Therefore, Yang Chen chose a corner where no one could see him. His silhouette flashed, and he disappeared from the spot. Sun Mountain was not very far from his residence. It was only a 10-minute drive away. It was a small hill about 500 meters above sea level. The trees were dense, and many people used to do morning exercises at the top of the hill. However, because of the construction of the park in recent years, people gradually stopped coming. In addition, the municipal government had been advocating environmental protection in recent years and didn't allow people to open small shops to do business in the area. This affected the popularity of the area and made it a lot more desolate. Xiang Wei listened to Yang Cheng's advice that she should breathe more fresh air and feel nature during her training. It was good for the cultivation of her state of mind, so she chose this quiet place to train. Unexpectedly, it was this choice that gave the other party an opportunity. At this moment, the mountainside of Mount Sun was in a mess. Rocks and gravel collapsed in this area, and a large number of trees were blown to smithereens, falling on the mountainside. What was originally a small path leading to the foot of the mountain had now become a dead zone covered by mountain rocks. In the forest below, a group of men dressed in various colors were rushing over. Most of the men were Caucasians. They were tall and sturdy, and their hair colors and pupils were completely different. They seemed to have come from all over the world. Most of these people were carrying suitcases or backpacks for musical instruments. After they gathered near the collapsed area from all directions, they looked at the destruction caused by the explosion above and nodded to each other with hideous smiles. Then everyone put down their luggage and opened it. Inside, these large suitcases and backpacks were black rocket launchers. Most of these rocket launchers had a lot of marks on them. They should have been used for many years, but they were well maintained and assembled very quickly. After the group of foreign men finished assembling the rocket launchers, they prepared to launch a fatal shot at the area covered in rocks and soil. The fierce fire of more than a dozen rocket launchers would even blow a tank into pieces, not to mention the human bodies trapped under the rocks and soil. But at this moment, a man's figure swayed in front of everyone. This flash was Yang Cheng. The group of foreign men who were about to launch the rocket launchers were shocked. They couldn't believe it and thought they were seeing an illusion. Yang Cheng was not late. When he saw the row of rocket launchers aimed at him, he was furious. However, he felt that Xiang Wei and Adeline under the pile of rocks were not in danger, so he didn't kill this group of people immediately. After all, it was not too late to kill the mastermind behind the scenes. Glancing at the model of the rocket launchers, Yang Cheng frowned. Carl Gustav rocket launcher. Are you Swedish soldiers? Yang Cheng used a standard Swedish official language, which surprised the group of men. Who are you? A brown-haired man who seemed to be the leader of the team asked suspiciously. He really did use Swedish. Yang Cheng said coldly. Carl Gustav rocket launcher is the standard equipment of the Swedish army. If you are the official army, you can't be here. It seems that you are mercenaries who retired from the army. So what if I am? Although you seem to be very fast, my brothers are all retired elites of the Lapland Rangers. Do you think you can stop us? The man sneered in disdain. Yang Cheng was a little stunned. Lapland Rangers? Why? Have you heard of our name? The man said proudly. The Lapland Rangers were a special force of Sweden. They were trained in the Arctic Circle of Sweden. They fought in the cold all year round. They were good at long-range patrols, long-range surprise attacks, and disrupting the enemy's rear area. When Yang Cheng carried out assassin missions near the Arctic Circle and did some training, he didn't play games with this Swedish ace army. Of course, he was still young at that time, so he could deal with them. But now, he didn't care at all. It seemed that they were the ones who secretly set up the explosives, avoiding the eyes and ears of the Sea Eagles. However, why did these retired mercenaries suddenly come to Huaxia to kill him and Xiang Wei? Suddenly, Yang Cheng remembered a name that he hadn't read for a long time. Situ Mingza. Back then, Xiang Wei said that she sent Situ Mingze to a Nordic country for him to retire there. Wasn't Sweden a Nordic country? Did Situ Mingze send you? Although he didn't know why Situ Mingze had another chance to fight back, Yang Cheng still asked. The man shook his finger. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have time to waste with you. Guys, fire! Under his command, all the mercenaries with their fingers on the trigger pressed down at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. A series of almost simultaneous firing sounds shook the mountain forest. All the rockets brought with them white smoke as they headed straight for the collapsed area that was covered in rubble. However, before those rockets could get close to the edge of the mountain, it was as if all the firing power was suddenly lost, and all the rockets stopped in midair. This scene was like a frozen picture, and the group of Swedish mercenaries couldn't believe it. Yang Cheng narrowed his eyes. Since you don't want to talk, then there's no value in living. Having said that, Yang Cheng waved his hand, and all the rocket launchers turned around in midair like a swarm of locusts, flying back to the starting point of the launch. No. The strange and terrifying scene made the group of men wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. But the result couldn't be changed. Only a dozen or so explosions could be heard, and a huge pit filled with smoke and dust was blown up on the entire mountainous area. All that was left of these arrogant soldiers were some pieces of clothes, and their bodies were so charred that it was hard to tell where they came from. Yang Chen glanced at them indifferently. Killing more than 20 people was really nothing. He turned around and walked to the area covered in rocks and soil. With a wave of his hand, the heaven and earth restoration energy surged, and the rocks and soil turned into dust. A strong wind blew, and the dust scattered like sand. The figures of the two women were finally revealed in a sunken area. Adeline was wearing a tight-fitting armor, and she tightly protected Xiang Wei, using her back to bear a lot of pressure. Her back was a bloody mess. Fortunately, the members of the Sea Eagles were all trained, and their bodies were much stronger than ordinary people. Although the burden was too great, Adeline's life was not in danger. Rose had always been tough, but this moment, her eyes were red and her face was covered in dirt. Tears kept flowing down her face. Adeline, who was hugging Yang Chun tightly, raised her head and looked at Yang Chun sadly. Hubby, you, take a look at Adeline. Xiang Wei sobbed, and she could not continue. Xiang Wei knew Adeline because the Sea Eagles had trained the elites for her, but she never thought that one day Adeline would risk her life to protect her. When the mountain exploded, Rose was completely disheartened. Adeline, who suddenly appeared, pushed her into a small call in an instant. Only then did she avoid being drowned by a large number of falling rocks and crushed to death. Even so, Adeline, who was outside, was hit by a lot of heavy objects. Yang Cheng quickly squatted down and carried the weak Adeline away from Xiang Wei. Adeline's lips were pale, and there was blood at the corner of her mouth. She was having difficulty breathing, but fortunately, her body was strong, and she was fine. You did well. I'm very grateful, Yang Cheng said sincerely with a gentle smile on his face. Adeline's sweaty face revealed a smile. Have I become His Majesty Pluto's benefactor? I can consider letting you retire early and honorably. Yang Cheng smiled and brushed his hand over Adeline's back. The powerful recovery ability of the Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture instantly stopped Adeline's bleeding. Next, Adeline only needed to receive some nutrition, and she would be able to recover quickly. Seeing that Adeline was not in danger, Xiang Wei was relieved and smiled. It's good that you're fine. Yang Cheng's expression was not good. The other party actually did things to this extent. If it had not come back in time, Xiang Wei would have died. It seemed that the matter of sending more Sea Eagles to Zhonghai could not be delayed. Of course, the bugs that popped up now had to be killed first. Just when he was about to ask Xiang Wei something, his phone rang. Yang Cheng took it out and saw that it was a call from Mullen. Chapter 816. After picking up the call, Yang Cheng asked, "What's the situation?" "Your Majesty Pluto, the situation is more complicated than we thought. The members of the Red Thorn Society who seemed to be protecting your house had a sudden internal conflict when our team members went over to look for possible bombs. Some of them took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention and attacked the members of the Red Thorn Society. Their target was your family. However, due to their internal conflict, they delayed it for a bit. The Sea Eagles member I sent arrived in time and stopped the traitors who wanted to harm your family. Molin's words challenged Yang Cheng's nerves once again, luring the tiger away from the mountain. "Hubby, how is it? Why you look so pale?" Qiang Wei asked worriedly after calming herself down. Yang Cheng told Molin to continue sending people to keep an eye on the place and report to him if anything happened. "Qiang Wei, did you send your father to Sweden?" Yang Cheng asked. A trace of surprise flashed through Qiang Wei's eyes. "Hubby, you're asking this. Could it be my father this time?" The other party is a mercenary group formed after the Swedish Special Forces retired. Otherwise, normal gangsters wouldn't be able to hide from my men and plant explosives in your house. Moreover, their target is obviously me and you. In other words, they are very familiar with our relationship and want to get rid of me, Yang Cheng explained. Qiang Wei's eyes instantly turned cold. "I did send him to Sweden. I thought he would give up. I didn't expect him to make a comeback. If it's your father, then it's understandable why your men would have internal conflicts and kill each other," Yang Cheng analyzed. "Some of the people you arranged to protect you have just betrayed you and wanted to kill your family members. Maybe they used to be from the West Union Society and chose to betray you after knowing that your father is back." Qiang Wei nodded, agreeing with this guess. She frowned and asked, "Then what do we do now?" Yang Cheng looked back at the foot of the mountain and said, "Someone will come to report, and then we will know what to do next." At this time, a large number of black cars arrived at the foot of the mountain. The Mercedes-Benz S600 at the front stopped, and a young woman in a purplish-red short-sleeved dress walked out. It was Chen Rong. Chen Rong's face was filled with anxiety. Her forehead was covered in sweat as she commanded a group of Red Thorn Society members to run up the mountain. Because Sun Mountain was not tall, they soon arrived at the place where Yang Cheng and the other two were. Seeing the huge pit in front of Yang Cheng and some charred corpses, the members of the Red Thorn Society were horrified. Chen Rong saw that Yang Cheng and Qiang Wei were fine and breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled excitedly and said, "Brother Yang, Sister Qiang Wei, it's good that you're fine. I just received a report from my subordinates that Sister Qiang Wei's house exploded. It's a good thing that Sister Qiang Wei wasn't home. I was worried that Sister Qiang Wei would be ambushed while you were training here. It seems that you're fine now, as long as Brother Yang is here." Looking at Chen Rong, who was so scared that her eyes were filled with tears, Qiang Wei's original trace of suspicion disappeared. It seemed that the chances of this girl taking the risk to make a move against her and Yang Cheng were not high. It seemed that it was all Situ Ming's plan. Yang Cheng said indifferently, "Have you found out who did it?" Chen Rong nodded and replied, "We've already found some clues. Some of the former members of the West Union Society rebelled, and the mastermind is very likely to be Situ Mingza, who sneaked back from Sweden, because his residence in Sweden is already empty." "Where is he now?" Yang Cheng asked. Chen Rong blushed, lowered her head, and said, "I'm sorry. Big Brother Yang, our people still haven't found any traces of him." Yang Cheng thought for a moment, then said to Qiang Wei, "Let's get in the car first and send Adeline back." Although Qiang Wei was anxious to resolve the matter, she also agreed. After all, Adeline had saved her life, so it was better to let her rest first. Her body was too weak after losing too much blood. Everyone returned to the car. The Mercedes-Benz S600's interior was relatively spacious. Chen Rong and the driver sat in the front, while Yang Cheng, Qiang Wei, and Adeline sat in the back. They returned home. Once there, Adeline would follow the Sea Eagles members to the base for treatment. Chen Rong made phone calls to all the branch heads and ordered them to monitor the movements of the betting sites. She especially put some of the West Union Society's henchmen under strict surveillance. After doing all this, Chen Rong turned around and asked respectfully, "Sister Qiang Wei, should we send some people to search some places outside of Zhonghai?" Situ Mingza might have fled to another place after seeing that the attack had failed. Qiang Wei was about to nod, but Yang Cheng stopped her. "No need. Rong Rong, gather all the people who have a say in Red Thorn Society. whether it's branch heads, young or old, and gather them all at the southeast port of Zhonghai. I remember that Red Thorn Society has their own cruise ship. Let them all board, Yang Chung said. Chen Rong was puzzled. Big brother Yang Wei, are we going out to sea? Yang Chung said expressionlessly, do what I tell you to do. Don't ask for the reason. Chen Rong looked at Yang Cheng's emotionless eyes and felt a chill in her heart. She quickly nodded and began to make phone calls to her subordinates to spread the news. Yang Chung added, tell them, if they don't come this time, prepare the urn. Chen Rong's body trembled. She could tell that Yang Chung wasn't joking. Xiang Wei looked at the man thoughtfully. She chose to remain silent and didn't ask why. 10 minutes later, the convoy arrived at the main road outside the house. Looking at the house that was completely destroyed, then looking at Lin Ruoshi's house that was also disfigured, Xiang Wei smiled bitterly. Hubby, it seems like we have to move this time. Move then. I'll help you move when the time comes. But let's solve the problem first. Yang Chung chuckled and comforted the woman. Everyone got out of the car, and Xiang Wei helped Adeline back to the courtyard. Although Adeline kept saying that it wasn't necessary, Xiang Wei still wanted to make up for the guilt in her heart as much as possible. When they returned to the courtyard, the scene was just as shocking. The ground was littered with bloody corpses. The blood had yet to dry, and the grass was dyed red. A muscular Caucasian man with brown hair walked in front of Yang Chen. He bowed and said, Your Majesty Pluto, the ones killed here are the rebels of Red Thorn Society who tried to harm Madam and your family. I'm very sorry for dirtying your courtyard. Yang Chung patted him on the shoulder. Well done. Very timely. I'll ask Sauron to give you and Adeline a bonus. Anyway, we're moving, so let be dirty. Although Yang Chung could turn the corpses into dust in an instant, it wasn't necessary. Yang Chung didn't want to use his heaven and earth restoration energy so that he wouldn't get used to it. On one hand, he was worried about the heavenly tribulation. On the other hand, Yang Chung didn't think that he was undefeatable like before. To prevent a sneak attack, Lin Ruoshi, Guoshuahua, and the others stayed in the house. Yang Chung didn't plan to go in at this time. After making sure that his family was fine, he left Adeline at home and asked the members of the Sea Eagles to send her for treatment. Then, he took Xiang Wei to the southeast port in the car. The car sped all the way to the port. The luxurious cruise ship with the Red Thorn Society's logo was already ready. It was originally used by the Red Thorn Society for occasional celebrations or underworld transactions on the high seas. This time, however, it was a little abrupt, and the crew didn't know why the president suddenly wanted it. A large number of high-end luxury cars were already parked at the port next to the cruise ship. One after another, the leaders of the Red Thorn Society boarded the cruise ship. Most of them looked puzzled and asked each other why they were suddenly asked to board the cruise ship. Moreover, it was a death order. The Red Thorn Society was no longer what it used to be. Some of the leaders of the society were frequent guests at the upper-class banquets in Zhonghai, not to mention the leaders of the society. If they were in another province, they could easily set up a provincial underworld organization. This was inseparable from Zhonghai's strong financial power in Huaxia. Coupled with the Green Dragon Society's alliance in Yanjin, it would be strange if they weren't powerful. Therefore, this group of people mostly held their heads high and puffed out their chests, exuding the arrogance of a powerful tyrant. When Yang Chung and Xiang Wei boarded the cruise ship with Chen Rong, many of the leaders of the society were whispering to each other. As the real president, Xiang Wei rarely came out to deal with internal affairs. Other than a few times when she went to the front line to command in large-scale underground battles, the acting president, Xiang Wei, was in charge of the daily affairs. Therefore, many of the senior members were quite surprised when Xiang Wei came. Many of the senior members knew about Yang Cheng's ability, but many of the new members and those who didn't participate in the underworld wars in Zhonghai didn't know who Yang Cheng really was. After boarding the cruise ship, Yang Cheng asked Chen Rong to tell everyone to do their own things and stay on the ship. However, the ship had to leave for the high seas outside the East Sea immediately. These leaders asked each other and found out that this strange man was the president's man. He was also the key person who helped Xiang Wei defeat her father, Situmingza. Therefore, They didn't dare to underestimate him. They looked at Yang Cheng curiously. The cruise ship's whistle sounded in the port. 10 minutes later, the luxurious cruise ship officially set off for the high seas. Chapter 817. After Yang Cheng boarded the ship, he found a secluded, luxurious room and asked someone to bring him a laptop. Then, he used the ship's wireless network to contact Serene, who was far away in England. Although it was still early in the morning in the United Kingdom, Serene's military training allowed him to get online in no time. In the video, a half-naked, muscular man with messy red hair asked, "Your Majesty Pluto, although I know you must have something to do, it's really an unpleasant time." Yang Cheng ignored the man's complaints and said, "I need you to help me track down someone." That guy hired a retired Swedish Lapland ranger. His targets are Hua Xia, the leader of the Red Thorn Society in Zhonghai, and me. I'm guessing that he didn't enter Zhonghai, but chose to control it from afar so that he could retreat at any time. But I can't be sure. So, help me find his specific coordinates. As for the arrest, we'll talk about it after we find him. Serene thought for a moment, and after confirming that there were no problems, he said, "May I know his name?" "Situ Mingza." Serene nodded. "As long as it's related to mercenaries, it won't be hard to find out. I'll give you an answer in half an hour." After contacting these people, Yang Cheng asked Serene to inform him through his phone. Then, he left the room and went to the deck outside. Because it was a large cruise ship with luxurious facilities, there were a lot of entertainment facilities on the deck, including swimming pools and sunbaths. However, this group of big shots did not prepare much, so they could only drink cocktails, bask in the sun on the sea, and talk to each other to kill time. Xiang Wei and Chen Rong chatted with some of the elders in the society that they hadn't seen for a while and told them about the emergency that had happened. Only now did everyone realize that it was actually Situ Mingza who had made a comeback and almost caused Rose's death. They were all terrified, and there were many people who were whispering to each other, thinking about it even more. Yang Cheng came to Xiang Wei with a glass of iced champagne. Just as he was about to ask something, he heard a familiar voice call out to him. "Brother Yang, I finally see you. Long time no see." A chubby, round-faced man in a blue floral shirt came over with a smile on his face. Yang Cheng looked him up and down. "You are Xiao Zhao." I thought Brother Yang couldn't recognize me." "Haha," Xiao Zhao said happily. The young man in front of him was Xiao Zhao, whom Yang Cheng had met when he was still selling mutton skewers. He was the bartender at Rose Bar. At that time, this young man still had pimples on his face. Now, he finally looked like an adult, but his body was twice as thick. Xiang Wei walked over and said with a smile, "Xiao Zhao, I told you last time that you have to control yourself. You can't ignore everything just because you have a wife." Xiao Zhao scratched his head awkwardly. "I've been living a comfortable life for too long, and my wife is good at cooking. She won't be happy if I don't eat enough." Yang Cheng asked in surprise, "So you're already married? When did that happen?" "I got married half a year ago. It was held in my hometown, so I didn't flaunt it," Xiao Zhao said with a satisfied look. Xiang Wei shook her head and smiled. His wife was pregnant a while ago. She might be giving birth in another 2 months. Yang Cheng had a look of realization. He smiled ambiguously. "I couldn't tell. I heard that you're a hall leader now. You don't lack money for milk powder." Xiao Zhao smiled and said, "It's all thanks to Brother Yang's promotion." Yang Cheng sighed. In the blink of an eye, it had been almost 2 years since he returned to China. A lot of things that he didn't notice had changed quietly. Patting Xiao Zhao's shoulder, Yang Cheng turned to ask Xiang Wei, "Baby, are all you men here?" Xiang Wei wasn't sure either. She turned to ask Chen Rong, "Did all the men you informed come?" Chen Rong said in a low voice, "The leaders of the 16th and 23rd Streets and the hall leader of the Pingnan district didn't come." "What's the reason?" Yang Cheng asked. Chen Rong smiled stiffly. "They said that they didn't have a good reason. They were unwilling to come if I suddenly interrupted their plans. Did you say that Xiang Wei asked them to come?" "I did," Chen Rong said tactfully. "Maybe they have other urgent matters to deal with." Yang Cheng didn't say anything. He only glanced at Xiang Wei. Xiang Wei sighed faintly, but her eyes were firm. She said in a clear voice, Since they don't take my words seriously anymore, I naturally won't take them seriously. Saying that, Qiang Wei extended her hand to Chen Rong. Rong Rong, give me the phone. Chen Rong realized something and said anxiously, Sister Qiang Wei, calm down. They are all people who have contributed to the society. They don't deserve to die. There were a few elders from the Red Thorn Society who overheard the conversation. They looked on worriedly. Some of them couldn't believe that Qiang Wei would act so harshly. Qiang Wei's beautiful eyes suddenly shot out 2 rays of cold light. I've already given a death order, but they still won't come. Are you telling me that my words are already bullsh***T? Of course not, but Chen Rong wanted to persuade her, but Qiang Wei's anger was getting more and more intense. Her voice gradually became softer. Chen Rong had no choice but to give the phone to Qiang Wei. Qiang Wei quickly dialed the number and said indifferently, Wang Duo, Zhou He from the 16th and 23rd districts, and Lu Ziqiang from Pingnan. Leave no one alive. After that, Qiang Wei hung up and threw the phone back to Chen Rong. The big shots who heard Qiang Wei's order felt a chill down their spines. The strongest elite team of the Red Thorn Society was the loyal personal guards that Qiang Wei had asked the Sea Eagles to train. This team usually only listened to Qiang Wei's orders. They were responsible for punishing the troublemakers in the society and some troublesome gangsters from other provinces. Since Rose had asked them to torture them, the 3 of them definitely wouldn't be able to live. However, the killing method of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots sent chills down their spines. At the same time, they were reminded that the true leader of the Red Thorn Society wasn't Chen Rong, but Situ Qiang Wei. Looking at Chen Rong's pale face, Qiang Wei said, What? Do you think I've gone too far? Chen Rong quickly shook her head. No, I don't dare. So you're still not satisfied with my methods, but you don't dare to disobey me. Qiang Wei snorted, I told you long ago that since they've embarked on this path, there's no turning back, unless they can become stronger than me. However, they foolishly chose to become disobedient when they're not stronger than me. I'm not interested in leaving some trouble under my nose. Chen Rong nodded and didn't dare to say anything else. After doing all this, Qiang Wei didn't have much of an emotional fluctuation. She turned and asked Yang Cheng with a smile, Hubby, why did you ask everyone to go to the high seas? Did you find that person? Yang Cheng shook his head. I'm not sure of the specific location, but the reason I went to the high seas was because I wanted to end things there. It's too close to the shore, so the conditions don't meet. Qiang Wei was a little confused and said angrily, You only know how to keep me in suspense. Forget it. You definitely have a way. I'll just be the stupid woman beside you. The 2 of them chatted with some of the elders in the association for a while. Because many people knew that Qiang Wei had started killing again, they were all in a state of danger, so there was no lack of flattery. Finally, about half an hour later, Yang Cheng received a call from Sauron. Your Majesty Pluto, your prediction is very accurate. It is indeed in the high seas outside of China. In the past month, Situmingza used a large sum of money to hire 3 teams of Lapland mercenaries. He is currently being protected by 2 mercenaries on a small destroyer on the high seas. Our satellite has detected that he's heading south. He's probably trying to escape. He's traveling at his maximum speed of 18 knots. Your cruise ship won't be able to catch up with him at its current speed. However, if necessary, you can ask the Yamata sect, which is based in Okinawa, Japan, to dispatch several ships passing by on the high seas to intercept him. You'll be able to catch up with him within an hour. Yang Cheng said with satisfaction. In that case, contact Hanya on my behalf and let her handle it. But just stop him, don't make a move. Then send me the estimated interception coordinates, and I'll go and solve it myself. Sauron agreed and immediately did as he was told. After Yang Cheng received the coordinates, he asked the captain to accelerate to the maximum speed of 22 knots and head in that direction. It was noon, but Yang Cheng was not in a hurry. He went to the restaurant with Qiang Wei to enjoy lunch, which was just enough to pass the boring time of the chase. Although the big shots of the Red Thorn Society on the ship were not very clear about what Yang Cheng was going to do, but after hearing some of Yang Cheng's deeds from Little Zhao and other old men, they all carefully watched from the side, not daring to show any dissatisfaction. About an hour later, when Yangcheng was full, the captain of the cruise ship also reported that the small destroyer had appeared in front of them. At the same time, 4 Japanese warships flying the flag of the Yamata sect had surrounded it. When the cruise ship entered the range of the blockade, the scene on the opposite destroyer gradually became clear. The blue sky and the blue sea, the sun in Guang Yao's eyes. All the muzzles of the destroyer were ready to fight to the death at any time. On the deck, dozens of Lapland mercenaries with loaded guns looked serious, full of fierce and unafraid of death. Surrounding them was a man in his 60s with gray hair. Around him, the man stood upright with his hands behind his back, his loose clothes fluttering in the wind. Chapter 8:18. Yang Cheng, Chiang Wei, and a group of people also stood on the deck. Seeing that person, many of the Red Thorn Society's elders cried out in surprise. That person was the leader of the West Union Society, Situ Mingza. Seeing her biological father was equivalent to confirming the mastermind behind this incident. Chiang Wei's expression was complicated. Apart from anger, there was also a trace of confusion in her beautiful eyes. She couldn't understand why. Even though they were biological father and daughter, she had already spared her father's life, but he still insisted on killing her. He didn't even want to leave a complete corpse. When the 2 ships gradually lined up side by side, the other 4 ships of the Yamata sect silently retreated a certain distance. It seemed that they had received prior orders not to interfere in the upcoming conflict. Situ Ming's gray eyes didn't show the slightest bit of fear or timidity. Compared to the past, there was a lot less hostility, but that trace of arrogance and disdain was still there. Both sides were silent for a long time. Finally, Situ Mingza opened his mouth and smiled. "You're really worthy of being my daughter. You can still survive in this situation. I didn't expect that I would lose again." Chiang Wei took a deep breath and looked at the man on the opposite deck. She felt that he was a stranger than ever. "You shouldn't have come back." Situ Mingza threw his head back and laughed. "You want me to stay in that cold and damned place for half my life, and then I don't even know which day I'll die alone at home, breathing in the muddy heat of the world? Are you kidding me? Even if I'm riddled with bullets, I won't be a turtle hiding in its shell. Those who hide in their shell aren't necessarily turtles, and those who stick out their head aren't necessarily turtles." Yang Cheng said lightly, and with a light tap of his foot, his body leaped into the air. Leaving a beautiful trajectory, Yang Cheng directly jumped a few dozen meters and landed on the opponent's ship. This scene was nothing to Yang Cheng, but in the eyes of the others, they were all dumbfounded. Situ Mingza frowned. "It seems that the person I underestimated the most is still you. You're much more capable than I thought." Yang Cheng said indifferently. "Who helped you hire these soldiers from Sweden? Tell me, and I'll let you die a quick death." "No one helped me." Situ Mingza sneered. "Do you think I won't leave a backup plan for myself? Since you're so dishonest, I'll think of a way to make the real clown show himself." Yang Chun looked disinterested. Using Swedish, he said, "I'm going to start killing. You guys better stay close." Among the mercenaries, the leader was a burly man wearing a white camouflage uniform, holding a heavy German MG machine gun. This kind of machine gun was not something a normal soldier could carry so casually. He cursed in Swedish, "Who the hell are you?" If it weren't for the fact that there were 4 Yamata sect ships surrounding them, the mercenaries would have opened fire a long time ago. It was because they wanted to leave a chance of survival that they didn't go all out. Yangshan didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the big guy. "Don't move." The big man used a warning. "If you come any closer, I'll shoot. Don't challenge the glory of the Lapland warriors." Yang Cheng still didn't speak. The distance between them was only a few meters. The big man cursed in his heart and no longer hesitated. Since there was a slim chance of survival, he might as well fight with his life. The heavy machine gun in his hand suddenly fired. Toot-toot-toot-toot-toot. Fire snakes spat out. It was only a few meters away, but the penetrative bullets could even turn an armored vehicle into a sieve. All of the bullets hit Yang Chen's chest, but what the brave mercenaries couldn't believe was that they were all blocked a centimeter away from Yang Chen's body. They couldn't advance any further, and all of them fell onto the deck with a thud. When the burly man opened his mouth wide, thinking that he was dreaming, Yang Chun had already walked in front of him. Yang Cheng's height was only up to the 2-meter big man's chest. He stretched out one hand and grabbed the big man's neck. Crack! After a crisp sound, the burly man's life was directly cut off. Yang Cheng didn't stop. He threw the dead body off the deck and into the sea below. Then, he continued to walk towards the nearest mercenary. Situ Mingza felt a hysterical chill rise from the soles of his feet, drilling straight into his head. This man didn't have the slightest emotion when he killed people. It was as if he was stepping on a bug. He thought that he was a hero for half his life, but he never imagined that a person could kill people so easily. I'll kill everyone, then I'll kill you. You can consider whether or not you want to tell me who the person who helped you is. Yang Cheng said casually. His footsteps and hands didn't stop. A group of mercenaries had already started firing at Yang Cheng in a frenzy. Bullets whizzed across the deck, forming a huge barrage of bullets around Yang Chen's body. But Yang Cheng didn't slow down at all. He caught a person, broke their neck, and threw them into the sea. Most of the Red Thorn Society members on the cruise ship were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. They could only see the ghost-like man wandering in the rain of bullets. He used his body to beat the big and burly men until they couldn't resist and died instantly. Yang Cheng's methods started from breaking the necks. Then, he started to show blood. Sometimes, he pierced his hand through their chests, and sometimes, he smashed half of their heads. He didn't hold back at all. As his methods became more and more violent, Situ Ming's face turned ashen. His lips trembled, and he kept muttering something. Qiang Wei had seen Yang Cheng kill people before, so she could barely endure it. But Chun Rong and the others beside her were pale, and some of them even started to vomit. Suddenly, the sea breeze started to fill with the smell of blood. Almost everyone thought that it would be a fierce battle, but the situation before their eyes was a one-sided massacre by a single person. After only 3 minutes, Situ Mingza was the only one left on the opposite deck. He was still standing, but his face was ashen and his eyes were numb. Yang Cheng shook off the blood on his hand and asked, "Are you going to tell me or not?" Situ Mingza gulped, and the corner of his mouth twitched. You're not human. You're the devil." Yang Cheng sneered. A father who wanted to blow up his only biological daughter with an anti-rocket cannon is calling me a devil. Why do I feel that it's not convincing? Situ Mingza was speechless. He took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. I already said that it was my own backup plan. If I lose, then I lose. If you want to kill me, then come. Yang Cheng narrowed his eyes and asked with a strange smile, "Do you know why I came to this sea to make a move?" Situ Mingza shuddered and couldn't help but ask, "Why?" "Because there are some interesting little guys here." Yang Cheng's smile was a little sinister. The people on the cruise thought that Yang Cheng would easily finish off Situ Mingza, and they couldn't bear to see such a cruel scene. But now, it seemed that Yang Cheng had other things to do. Yang Cheng looked around, walked to the side of the destroyer, and took out a high-strength plastic rope that was used to tie some goods on the ship. Then he walked towards Situ Mingza. "What are you doing?" Situ Mingza retreated in horror. Yang Cheng tied a loop around the rope, and in a flash, he appeared behind Situ Mingza. He tied the rope in front of him and then pulled it back. Then he circled left and right a few times. Situ Mingza was like a meat dumpling that was tied up, unable to move. Under everyone's astonished gaze, Yang Cheng grabbed Situ Mingza and threw him out of the deck. One end of the rope was caught by Yang Cheng, but Situ Mingza didn't fall into the sea. He was less than half a meter away from the surface of the sea and just hung there, swaying. Yang Cheng picked up a light rifle from the ground, walked to the edge of the deck, and fired at Situ Mingza, who was hanging there. However, the bullets didn't hit any fatal parts, but instead pierced a few holes in Situ Mingza's feet, causing some blood to flow out. Ouch! Situ Mingza couldn't help but cry out in pain. "If you want to kill me, then kill me. No matter how you torture me. I don't have anything to say." Yang Cheng looked down at him from above and said with an evil smile, It doesn't matter if you say anything or not. Anyway, I just want to fish for a while. As soon as he said this, everyone on the cruise suddenly noticed something that they hadn't noticed before, because there were a lot of bleeding corpses floating on the surface of the sea. There were some red waves, and around these corpses, there were actually some small sharks with dorsal fins. Some were grayish-black, some were spotted, but what was more consistent was that these sharks weren't big. Compared to the evil great white sharks that could grow to more than 6 meters long, these sharks were only about 2 meters or even 1 meter long. These sharks were attracted by the smell of blood, and they surrounded the corpses and began to ravage them. Although the sharks weren't big, there were at least a dozen of them. Many of the corpses that had been thrown into the sea earlier had already been bitten to the point where only some clothes were left floating on the water. Oh my God, it's sharks? When did they come? Why are there so many? The big shots of the Red Thorn Society finally understood what was going on, but when they realized what Yang Cheng meant by fishing, they all had goosebumps. Situ Mingze, who was being hung up, finally realized what was going to happen. Even the middle of his trousers had begun to get wet. Even though he had been through hundreds of battles, he was so scared that he peed his pants. Chapter 819. Yang Cheng laughed excitedly. In this area of the sea, there are a large number of dog sharks and nurse sharks. Although these sharks are not as large as the great white shark and can swallow a person in 1 or 2 bites, they can still eat a person after a few bites. Not to mention, there are quite a lot of them. Most of the sharks were usually docile, but once they were stimulated by the smell of blood, their fangs would not hold back. Yang Cheng's laughter continuously stimulated the nerves of Situ Mingze and the others. They could not imagine how cruel the following scene would be. These sharks opened their bloody mouths. Although it was not enough to swallow half a human body, they could still swallow a foot or a calf. If they could not bite off the person in 1 bite, they would continue to bite on the wound multiple times. Just imagining such a scene would make anyone's scalp go numb. Many of the big shots of Red Thorn Society could not help but vomit. They ran back inside in a panic, not daring to look at the bloody scene on the surface of the sea. These sharks were still devouring the bodies of the mercenaries in the sea. They did not care about Situ Mingze's bleeding foot. However, looking at the sharks below them, Situ Mingze's heart was about to go numb. Qiangwei, my daughter. Situ Mingze could not care about anything else. He began to shout, I am your biological father. Are you really going to watch me get eaten by the sharks like this? His tearful expression was extremely sorrowful and frightened. Qiangwei stood at the edge of the deck with tears in her eyes. She smiled bitterly and said, If it was not for Yang Cheng, I would have been killed by you 2 years ago. If it was not for Yang Cheng, I would have been killed by you countless times. You are so heartless to me. Have you ever thought that I am your daughter? I gave you one last chance to live, but you did not cherish it. Instead, you wanted to blow me up. One is a father who I hate more than my blood enemy. The other is a man who has saved me time and time again. Do you think I would stop him for you? After saying that, Qiangwei closed her eyes. The woman didn't want to stop what Yang Cheng was doing, but she also didn't want to see what would happen next. Yang Cheng sighed. Before, he thought that Qiangwei would at least say a few words to persuade him not to let Situ Mingze die so miserably. He didn't expect that this woman was far more determined than he thought. Perhaps, from the moment Situ Mingze sent people to set up the bomb and use the rocket launcher to blow her up, Qiangwei's heart toward her father had already completely withered. All right, I've already shouted for help. Yang Cheng said with a relaxed expression, Why don't the sharks come to eat you? How long do I have to fish? I'm still waiting to eat shark fins. Hey, go down a little more. As Yang Cheng said this, he ignored Situ Mingze's screams and loosened the rope again. Situ Mingze's feet directly fell into the sea. The bone-chilling seawater was mixed with salt, soaking his injured feet. Not only did the blood dye the seawater red, but it also stimulated his wounds to the point that they were unbearably painful. Situ Mingze painfully let out a throaty sound like grinding gears, his eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets. A colorful dog shark smelled the blood coming from Situ Mingze's feet and came over. It opened its red mouth the size of a basketball and bit the sole of Situ Ming's foot. Ow! Situ Ming's tragic screams directly shocked everyone's hearts. Many of the Red Thorn Society's big shots, who previously only saw the corpses being dismembered and eaten, now saw a living person being bitten by a shark. Many of them directly knelt on the ground. Their legs went soft. There were even a few timid ones who actually threw themselves on the ground and wailed loudly. It was as if they were the ones being eaten. That dog shark was, after all, a small shark. When it bit, it only bit off a shoe and a small piece of flesh, revealing the eerie white bones. It didn't really bite the foot into pieces. Even so, Situ Mingza had already wandered back and forth between fainting and waking up from the pain many times. The constant stimulation from the seawater and the bone-piercing pain from the foot that had a piece of flesh bitten off made it impossible for him to faint even if he wanted to. Seeing that it was effective, Yang Chung pulled up another section of the rope and continued to ask, "How do you feel? You just kill me." Situ Ming's eyes were lifeless, and his face was covered in seawater or sweat. "I haven't had enough yet. Before you give me the answer I want, I plan to start from your feet, then your calves. After I've bitten all the meat off your calves, I'll go to your thighs. This way, you won't die immediately. You can even slowly feel the process of your legs being eaten by sharks like a ham sausage." When everyone on the cruise heard this, they all looked at Yang Chung in horror. Chun Rong, Little Zhao, and the rest were all pale. In their eyes, Yang Cheng's figure had completely become a demon from hell. Situ Mingza felt his body start to descend again, getting closer and closer to the seawater. As his blood continued to flow out, the smell of blood became more intense. There was already more than one dog shark under him. This time, he would be bitten by many sharks at the same time. No, I'll talk. Situ Mingza started to cry bitterly. His nerves couldn't take another round of torture anymore. No matter how arrogant he was just an ambitious gangster. He hadn't received any special agent training, and he wasn't a fearless warrior. When fear took over his viciousness, he would no longer be able to hold on. Yang Chung pulled him away from the danger zone and said with a smile, "Speak, I'm listening." Situ Ming's face was sullen. If I say it, will you have no right to negotiate with me," Yang Chung said coldly. "You have two choices. First, go down and let the sharks bite other parts of your body. Second, tell me who helped you kill Chiang Wei and me. Don't try to lie to me. First of all, there's no point in lying to me. Second, I can make you suffer more than this." Situ Mingza swallowed his saliva, his eyes filled with despair and helplessness. He slowly turned around and looked at the Red Thorn Society members standing on the cruise ship. The big shots who were still standing looked at each other. They subconsciously understood that it was someone from the society. At this time, Chiang Wei also opened her eyes. She looked at the battered Situ Mingza with a complicated gaze, waiting for an answer. Situ Mingza's voice was hoarse. It's Chun. Before Situ Mingza could finish, the situation on the cruise ship suddenly changed. Chun Rong, who was originally standing behind Chiang Wei, suddenly grabbed Chiang Wei's neck with one hand and pointed a pistol at Chiang Wei's temple with the other. "Don't move. I'll shoot if anyone moves." The sharp voice broke the silence and instantly revealed the identity of the conspirator. "It's you? Damn it. Let go of the president. You're a traitor." The Red Thorn Society's big shots were filled with righteous indignation, but at the same time, they didn't dare to move. Because Chiang Wei was being held hostage, Chen Rong only needed to pull the trigger slightly, and Chiang Wei would be dead. Moreover, if they provoked Chen Rong slightly, the gun might go off by accident. Rose, who was being held hostage, looked calm, but there was a trace of melancholy in her eyes, as well as a trace of sadness. Yang Chung stared coldly at Chen Rong from a distance of tens of meters. This was what he wanted to confirm. Although it took some effort, the result was almost the same. "Damn, old man, you're going to die, yet you still drag me down. Serves you right to be eaten by sharks. You even wasted the money I spent on hiring mercenaries." Chen Rong's face was filled with ruthlessness, like a wild beast that had fallen into a swamp and was desperately trying to escape. Her originally delicate face became twisted and hideous. At this time, Sita Mingze didn't have the strength to speak. He had lost too much blood, causing him to be in a semi-conscious state. You think you can save yourself like this? Yang Cheng asked calmly. Chen Rong clenched her teeth. I still failed. I originally planned to let Situ Mingze bewitch the original West Union Society members, and then cooperate with the powerful Swedish mercenaries to eliminate you. But I still underestimated your ability. I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to kill you. Before you said you wanted to go out to sea, I already thought that we might be exposed, but I didn't expect that. There's no turning back. Yang Cheng chuckled. I remember I said before, if you do anything that I don't like, I won't care about your brother's reputation. You will be worse than going to hell. Chapter 820. So what? Chen Rong screamed. Come at me if you dare. If you dare come any closer, I'll shoot your beloved woman. A life for a life. I won't pay for it, even if I die. Everyone retreated a certain distance, afraid that Chen Rong, who was in a frenzied state, would open fire. Xiang Wei, who had been quiet all this time, suddenly opened her mouth and asked in a clear voice, Can you tell me the reason why you're trying so hard to kill me? Ha! Chen Rong sneered. Reason? Do I even need to say it? You want me to be a watchdog for the rest of my life? I can't accept this. Why is it that you're the leader when I've put in so much effort to manage the Red Thorn Society? Just because you created it? Just because you unified Zhonghai? Huh. Others might not know, but I know. If it wasn't for Yang Cheng's help, you wouldn't even be able to defeat the West Union Society. You say I'm a good learner, that I'm talented in the underworld, but you know I'm better than you, so you want me to work for you. You're just a shameless woman who relied on a man to get to the top. I'm the one who used my talent to lead the Red Thorn Society to become the overlord of Zhonghai. It's me, Chen Rong. Tell me, what ability do you have to convince the masses? I've always been the one who made the strategy to fight for territory with the gangs in other provinces. You're just better at fighting and killing than me. I'm the real leader of the Red Thorn Society. You wanted to cut off our cooperation with the Green Dragon Society just because they were doing some university girl business. You wanted to change the leader of the society just because your underlings were collecting protection fees. We're the underworld. Do you think the underworld needs to benefit the people? F*CK them. Those dog government officials are plundering the people, and we sell drugs. Pimps. It's not like we're robbing a bank. What's the big deal? Do you think the Red Thorn Society is a charity? Can we really not finish spending our money? Other gangs are risking being investigated by the government, but we're not even afraid of the government, yet we can only make small profits. Is your brain filled with water, or do you think you're sane? If it wasn't for me struggling to hold on, the Red Thorn Society's finances have been in the red for a long time. Do you think that the money you earn from the legal side can support so many brothers? Originally, if you had handed over the position of president to me, it would have been fine. I would have treated it as you bringing me into the underworld, showing filial respect to you and respecting you as the first president. When I take over as the president, everything will be under my control. In less than 3 years, not to mention Zhonghai, I can even devour all the surrounding provinces. But you only let me be the acting president. You keep saying that you will hand over the Red Thorn Society to me in the future, but you still occupy the position and refuse to give it up. I'm in my 20s this year, and you're also in your 20s. Are you going to wait until we're both in our 60s or 70s and have white hair before you give me the position of president? You want me to be a watchdog for a brainless and whimsical woman like you who relies on men to succeed? Dream on. Chen Rong's words were like a surging tide, silencing all the leaders of the Red Thorn Society on the cruise ship. Everyone's faces were filled with confusion and complexity. They had been in the underworld for many years, and they all had their own thoughts on these matters. After Qiang Wei unified the underworld of Zhonghai, she put an end to the sale of drugs and women. This was a huge blow to the finances of many gangs. After all, Those were the lucrative businesses of the underworld. However, because Qiangwei had the most elite forces under her control, and many of the leaders were loyal to her since the beginning, no one dared to say anything. It was hard to survive in the underworld, but as the boss, how could she lack money? The scene suddenly became quiet. Although many people disagreed, they didn't dare to speak up. Qiangwei let out a long sigh. So, that's what you think. What, did I say something wrong? Chunrong sneered. Sister Qiangwei, I call you sister because you're older than me. But in fact, I've always wanted to say that your brain is as naive as a 3-year-old. A faint smile appeared on Qiangwei's face. Maybe, sometimes, I'm indeed naive. I hope that everything will be as perfect as I imagine it to be. But it doesn't seem to be the case. Cut the crap. If you want to live, turn back immediately. And don't let Yang Chung return. Or else, we'll fight to the death. Chen Rong said sternly. Xiangwei sighed and said, Rong Rong, this is the last time I'll call you that. I've always hoped that you'd understand one day, but it seems that you still don't. What are you talking about? Chen Rong frowned. Have you ever thought about the 20,000 brothers and sisters in the Red Thorn Society? How many of them want to join the underworld? Xiangwei asked. This question stunned Chen Rong for a moment, and the leaders on the cruise looked at her in silence. Rose continued to speak as if she was talking to herself. How many people are so willing to walk on this path that is outside of the law? How many people really hope to live these days of fighting and killing? How many people really want to live a life where they might not even have a tomorrow? These people seem carefree and happy, but are they really like that? Perhaps, when they return home, they don't even dare to look their families in the eye, because they're seen as vermin, parasites, and filthy, detestable members of the underworld. If they're given a chance to be a good person, to have a stable income, to have a family, and to live a good life, do you think they'll be willing to live a bloody life just for a few thousand yuan a month? What are you talking about? I don't want to know. Hurry up and turn back. Chun Rong pushed the muzzle of her gun forward. Rose's charming face was filled with indifference. Perhaps in your eyes, and in many others' eyes, I'm cutting off your path to riches by prohibiting you from selling drugs and selling human flesh. You think that now that the Red Thorn Society is like the sun in the sky, and even the government doesn't dare to interfere with us, we should make a big splash and make a lot of money. But do you think you can live such a carefree life forever? If it weren't for Yang Chung by my side, if it weren't for our cooperation with the Yuan family, Fong family, and the other wealthy families in Zhonghai, do you think you can live under the sun so easily? Perhaps the government and the military can turn a blind eye now, but one day, when Yang Chung and I are no longer around, what will you rely on to get special treatment from the government? Do you really think that 20,000 gang members can defeat and reinforce company of armed forces? Everyone listened with ugly expressions, and they were a little distracted. Chen Rong's hands trembled slightly. Whatever you say is useless. Since the day I organized the Red Thorn Society, I never thought of walking the underworld forever. If it weren't for my family background, I wouldn't have chosen this kind of life. What I have to face is not only the bosses who have already drunk their fill, but also the underworld members who are still struggling to find a way to survive. For them, I have to prepare for long-term development and not choose all kinds of underworld businesses that challenge the country's bottom line for the sake of momentary greed. What you said seems to be for the benefit of the Red Thorn Society, but in fact, it's just for short-term benefits, and you're ruining everything in the future. Shut up. Nonsense. Chun Rong trembled with anger. It's you. You're the one who led me to this path. You're the one who told me. Walking on this path is like walking into the underworld, and there's no turning back. What future? What tomorrow? Only by becoming stronger and getting rid of all obstacles is the path that the underworld should take. A cold glint flashed across Qiangwei's eyes. Is that so? It sounded like a sigh of regret, but Rose's body made an attack at this moment that no one expected. She elbowed Chenrong's throat like a bolt of lightning. When Chenrong stopped breathing and her hand went limp, Qiangwei shrank back, turned around, and circled behind Chenrong. Like a thunderbolt, she snatched the pistol from Chenrong's hand and aimed it at Chenrong's head. All of this took less than a second, and it was the result of Qiang Wei's years of hard work. Yang Cheng, who was watching everything from the warship, was gratified. With Qiang Wei's physical fitness, it was indeed the perfect time for her to cultivate. On the other hand, the people on the cruise were cheering. Rose's sudden outburst made those who supported her extremely happy. Chen Rong's face was ashen, and she couldn't believe what had happened. She couldn't even react. When you point your gun at me, don't forget who taught you. Qiang Wei's eyes were like deep water. Chen Rong suddenly laughed foolishly, turned her head, and looked at Qiang Wei with hatred. If I lose, then I lose. Shoot. You were the one who led me onto this path of no return. You'll be the one to finish it. In any case, my life in the underworld is one of success or death. Qiang Wei said expressionlessly, Before I kill you, I'll give you one last piece of advice. The reason why I'm still the president isn't because I'm much stronger than you. It's because I can sacrifice my own interests for my brothers. But you to achieve your goals, you can sacrifice your brothers who seem to be at the bottom. The underworld is a path of no return, but I've never said that this path of no return must be filled with darkness and pain. It's just that you've never tried to see it as a life of light and warmth. Even if there's a cliff in front of you, when you walk towards it, there will still be flowers by the side of the road. Also, if you had waited for another month, I would have already decided to officially entrust the president to you. Chen Rong's pupils contracted, and she resisted the urge to break down. Her voice trembled as she said, I don't believe it. Qiang Wei didn't speak again, and her fingers slowly pulled the trigger. You don't have to do it. Chen Rong suddenly smiled brightly, and with a light leap, she flew out and fell into the sea. This time, it wasn't just Qiang Wei and Yang Cheng. Everyone was stunned. This once simple young woman who came from the countryside to the city, after choosing this underworld path, used the most untamable method to end her madness. No one cried out, and no one felt much sadness or joy for Chen Rong's suicide. All of this made them feel numb. Yang Cheng released the rope without any hesitation. Situ Ming's fate was still linked to the shark's teeth, but because he had been bleeding for a long time, he was already a corpse by the time he fell into the sea. The sudden incident this time was finally resolved satisfactorily. The only regret was that the Red Thorn Society had indeed lost an acting leader who was highly intelligent in the underworld. Yang Cheng jumped back onto the cruise ship and reached out to hug Qiang Wei's fragrant shoulder. He patted it and smiled. Can you not say such handsome and artistic words? My heart won't be able to take it. Qiang Wei looked at him gently and threw the gun into the sea. Her gaze swept across everyone present. There was no dignity in her gaze, only a sense of intimacy. I'm really tired. Ever since I could remember, I couldn't get rid of the word underworld in my life. Now, I officially announce that I will be stepping down as the president of Red Thorn Society and will only take my share of the assets. The rest of Red Thorn Society's operations will be handed over to the new president, Qiang Wei announced in a clear voice. The moment those words came out, everyone who was still happy just a moment ago burst into an uproar. They were filled with disbelief, especially little Zhao and a few other veterans who had been with Qiang Wei for a long time. They immediately tried to persuade Qiang Wei not to leave. Qiang Wei raised her hand, signaling for everyone to be quiet. From today onwards, little Zhao Mingbo, will be the president of Red Thorn Society. The scene quieted down once more. Everyone was stunned as they looked at little Zhao, who was at a loss. Yang Cheng gave Qiang Wei a thumbs up. I think this fatty can do it. Everyone was a little hesitant. It seemed like Qiang Wei's resignation was inevitable, but many people weren't convinced that she would pass it on to little Zhao. Qiang Wei said, I know many people won't be satisfied, but whether little Zhao can do it or not, everyone will know after a few months. If he really can't do it, we'll just elect him according to the rules of the society. As for if someone wants to rebel, I won't care. But if Red Thorn Society is in chaos and causes unrest in society, without me and Yang Cheng, it's hard to say if the government and the military will do anything. Everyone's forehead was covered in cold sweat. They just realized that if Qiang Wei quit, it meant that Yang Cheng would no longer be in charge of Red Thorn Society. In other words, the era of Red Thorn Society relying on the government was over. Seeing that everyone was no longer complaining, Qiang Wei smiled and nodded. Yang Chen walked to Little Zhao's side and patted the plump man's shoulder. Little Zhao, you know your brother Yang hates people who disturb my peaceful days the most. If Zhonghai becomes chaotic in the future, I'll come looking for you. You have a wife and kids, right? You're not alone. You have to do a good job for your family. Little Zhao felt a chill down his spine. He thought of Yang Cheng's cruel methods and quickly nodded. Chapter 821. After this series of sudden changes, not much time had passed, even though it seemed like a lot of things had happened. When the cruise ship returned to Zhonghai, it was only dusk. The members of the Red Thorn Society returned to their respective halls. Although the world had changed, no one had any doubts, at least not on the surface. Although Rose said that she was no longer the president, what truly brought fear to everyone was Yang Chen's last words to everyone. God knows what this devil meant when he said not to disturb his peaceful life. What did he mean by that? Therefore, these people only wanted to manage their subordinates and obediently do their own things under the new president. Yang Cheng asked Xiao Zhao to tell her brother, Chen Bo, about Chen Rong's death. As for the cause of death, he told her that she had participated in Situ Ming's revenge and jumped into the sea when she was exposed. However, there was no need to mention how she was eaten by sharks. Yang Cheng didn't want to hide it from Chen Bo. Yang Cheng didn't care what the man who was now with Chanel thought. He had asked Chen Bo if he was willing to let his sister follow Qiang Wei, and Chen Bo had agreed. Later, Chen Rong started to go into the underworld. As Chanel's man, it was impossible for him not to know what his sister was doing. Since Chen Bo didn't stop him from then on, he should have been mentally prepared. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that Chen Rong was his sister, Yang Chen would have killed this rebellious woman long ago on the streets. Then, Yang Cheng and Qiang Wei took a car back home. Since Qiang Wei's house was destroyed, she had to go home with Yang Cheng first. In the living room, Emo Qianni, who had calmed down, was waiting for Yang Cheng and Chen Bo's return with Lin Ruoxi and Guo Xiuhua. Before this, Ma Guifang had come home from work, and Jinxiu had also returned home from the orphanage. Seeing that Yang Chen and Rose were safe and sound, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Is everything settled? Guo Xiuhua stood up and asked. Yang Chen nodded. It's no trouble at all. I just want to do a clean job, so I went out to sea. Sailing? Guo Xiuhua and the others were puzzled. Yang Chen briefly explained what had happened. When he mentioned Chen Rong, everyone sighed, especially Jinxiu. She looked a little scared. If Choi Yun hadn't dragged her into the police station, she might have walked into the abyss too. But after the discussion, the atmosphere in the hall became strange. Although they lived next door, most of the time, it was just Ma Guifang, Guo Xiuhua, and Mother Wang chatting and drinking tea together. Lin Ruoxi, Emo Qianni, and Xiang Wei would never gather together like this. At this moment, because the two girls had nowhere to go, and even their belongings were destroyed, they had to start from scratch. They could only sit in the living room and look at each other. Jinxiu, on the other hand, was filled with anticipation. She seemed to be very interested in what her three sisters would say in such a situation. Guo Xiuhua tugged at Yang Cheng's sleeve and whispered, Son, what should we do next? How would I know? Yang Cheng wasn't sure either, so he pretended to be innocent and didn't know anything. After a while, Lin Ruoxi finally opened her mouth and said naturally, Why don't you stay in our house tonight? There are empty rooms here. But before she could finish, Mother Wang reminded her, Miss, we can't do that. Many parts of our house were blown up and the guest room collapsed. Actually, we have to move too. This house might not be safe anymore. Lin Ruoxi opened her mouth. She didn't notice this and said it casually, but she made herself embarrassed. Qiang Wei smiled and said, Since we are moving, I have a suggestion. Why don't we look around and see if there are any suitable houses for us to live in now? We have been neighbors for a long time, so why don't we continue to be neighbors? Hearing this, everyone was stunned, especially Guo Xiuhua and Mother Wang. They didn't expect Qiang Wei to say that they should continue to stay together, Wasn't it obvious that she wanted to be close to Yang Chung? Although Mo Qianni liked it, she couldn't support Xiang Wei in front of Lin Ruoxi, so she could only be the silent one. Ma Guifeng also knew her daughter's difficulty, so she also kept silent. But in her heart, she agreed with Xiang Wei's suggestion. As for Yang Chung, he was happy. He grinned and kept nodding. Lin Ruoxi stared straight into Xiang Wei's eyes, and the two women looked at each other unreservedly. Lin Ruoxi thought that Xiang Wei was provoking her, but after a while, she found that Xiang Wei's eyes were just asking kindly, without any intention of competing. She felt sour in her heart. When did she become such a suspicious woman? Even if they lived close to each other, should she be afraid of her? Lin Ruoxi thought gloomily. That's a good idea. Anyway, money isn't a problem. Let's choose a good house that we can live in now. Lin Ruoxi agreed. Hearing this, Guo Xiuhua interrupted with a smile. That's a good idea. I'm quite familiar with Yulan and Qianni's mother. It's good for us to have more companions at home when the younger ones go to work. Mother Wang and Ma Guifeng looked at each other and smiled. The three beautiful women were all very willing. The matter was settled just like that. For Lin Ruoxi and Xiang Wei, the money to buy a house wasn't a problem at all. The key was whether everyone was satisfied. Although Lin Ruoxi owned quite a number of properties, most of them were commercial and business buildings. Other than the previous Dragon Garden, the real houses she lived in were either luxurious villas far away from her or near Zhonghai. She had no choice but to buy another one. After all, in the past, Lin Ruoxi only lived with Mother Wang. There was no point in having more. With two more women in the house, it was especially lively. After Jinxiu helped Mother Wang to prepare a simple dinner, everyone started discussing where to buy a house after they finished eating. Lin Ruoxi took 2 laptops downstairs. She browsed through a website that specialized in high-end villas and residences. She evaluated the house as she searched. The house has to be new. It's best if it's ready to move in after the renovation. We don't have much time to buy things for ourselves. The location should be quiet and close to the mountains and rivers. It doesn't matter if it's far from the city center. Anyway, it's convenient to use the Ring Highway, Xiang Wei said. Lin Ruoxi nodded. Also, there can't be too many people. That's simple. You buy the most expensive one. There will definitely be fewer people, Yang Chung interrupted. Lin Ruoxi glared at him. Do I need you to tell me that? Yang Chung pouted and didn't say anything else. Xiang Wei turned around and asked Mo Qianni, who was smiling and not saying anything. Qianni, what do you think? We're living together. You should tell me. Mo Qianni shook her head. Do as you see fit. Mom and I can do it. Besides, I can't afford a villa that's worth 10 or 20 million. Mom, and I can't take advantage of it. How would I dare to say anything? Although the woman was joking, there was a hint of self-mockery in her words. Compared to Lin Ruoxi and Xiang Wei, Mo Qianni's money was really nothing. Ma Guifeng only smiled and sighed, not saying anything. You can do it. Lin Ruoxi suddenly raised her head. Her eyes were clear. Mo Qianni didn't understand. Lin Ruoxi smiled faintly. I know. These 2 years, other international groups and world-class headhunters have been trying to poach you. Even LV wanted you to be the vice president of the Asia branch. If you leave ULA International and go to another international group, you could be a senior executive and hold a considerable amount of shares at the same time. Billions, to you it's all in the bag. It's just that you gave up those opportunities to stay in ULA to help me, isn't it? Mo Qianni smiled helplessly. Why did I say it out loud? It's nothing. Back then, the old CEO promoted me because he wanted me to assist you. If I left ULA for money, I would look down on myself. Actually, you could have gotten 3 to 5% of the company's shares from me, but you didn't. I've always been grateful to you, Qianni. Lin Ruoxi smiled. I think I'm an excellent strategist, but I'm definitely not an excellent executor. So, I really have to thank you for all these years. Lin Ruoxi's sudden sincere gratitude made Mo Qianni a little dazed, while Guo Xiuhua and the others all looked at her with approval. Ma Guifeng patted her daughter's back proudly. Girl, Mom knew you wouldn't let Mom down. You did the right thing. What's more important than money is a person's heart. Human heart. Then was it right or wrong for her to have feelings for her husband? Mo Chini smiled shyly. Ruashi, suddenly saying these words, should I be moved to tears, or should I ask you for money? Lin Ruashi pursed her lips. Money? No. But if Qiangwei asks you for rent in the future, I can help you pay for it first, and there won't be any interest. Yang Cheng, who was drinking tea, spat out a mouthful of water. Fortunately, he covered his mouth with his hand, and then said with a stiff smile, Wifey, is this a cold joke? Lin Ruashi blushed. She realized that everyone was looking at her with a strange expression, especially Qiangwei, who wasn't familiar with her. Her pair of watery eyes were wide open. So Lin hurriedly coughed twice. What are you looking at? Look at the house. The three elders chuckled a few times, feeling that the atmosphere was exceptionally joyous. On the other hand, Jinxiu suddenly let out a sound, pointed to a picture of a villa on the screen, and said, Sister Ruashi, look at this. It seems to meet your requirements. Chapter 822. Western Suburbs Courtyard. Lin Ruashi muttered the name, thought for a moment, and said, It seems. Yes. Qiangwei and Mo Chini also came over and stared at the elegant villa that was filled with greenery. They both seemed to like it. Mo Chini said, Ruashi, do you still remember that when this villa was completed 2 years ago, our Yulei cooperated with their real estate developer to sell home fashion products? These villas are Italian style, but our Yulei participated in the interior decoration. Now that you mention it, I have some impression. Lin Ruashi said softly. When Yang Cheng heard the name of this villa district, he felt that it sounded a little familiar, but he was too lazy to think about it. In any case, it was the same wherever he lived, as long as the woman liked it. The lowest price of this villa is more than 15 million. It uses the world's leading technology of natural temperature control of underground water. Moreover, each villa has a unique design. To the north is the hills of the western suburbs, and to the east is a branch of a river. The water quality is very good. There are comprehensive fitness and leisure facilities in the community, and it is guarded by the top 10 security companies in the country all year round. Because it's a super rich area, and it's not a popular area like a sea view house, many of the villas are empty. It's been a cold winter for real estate for the past year, but the real estate developer hasn't been willing to lower the price, so there are very few people there. Mo Chini spoke as if all of this information was deeply ingrained in her mind. Qiangwei's face lit up. There's a mountain? That's great. It can train one's physical fitness and martial arts, and the air will be especially good. Hearing the word exercise, Lin Ruashi's heart was moved. Indeed, if there were fewer people and the environment was quiet, she would also go out for a run. It would be much more comfortable. Since that's the case, let's contact the real estate developer and choose 2 sets to move over as soon as possible. Lin Ruashi didn't drag her feet either. If she liked it, she would buy it. Once the decision was made, the women began to look at the specific locations of the houses. In the end, they chose the most expensive area with the most beautiful environment. It cost more than 50 million in all kinds of expenses, which was ridiculously high. Fortunately, the house could always be sold after it was bought. Since they were going to move, the whole family was busy. Things had to be sorted out, but Qiangwei and Mo Chini only needed to move some valuables that had not been destroyed by the explosion, such as jewelry, especially Mo Chini's ring, which was worth more than 10 million US dollars. The woman had taken it out of the ruins a long time ago. The most troublesome thing was the replacement of identity documents. He had to go through the procedures to buy a house, so he needed these documents. However, the house was destroyed along with the explosion, so he could only rely on his connections to make up for it as soon as possible. Choi Yun was at home and didn't know so many things had happened here. When Lin Ruashi called, she was surprised at how Lin Ruashi could get rid of the grudge so quickly. When she heard that she was asked to help get 2 new ID cards and household registration books, she could only smile bitterly, but she still agreed. In the end, Choi Yun went to work tomorrow and asked people to hurry up. As usual, it would take 3 months to get the documents. It was all for personal gain. Although Choi Yun felt quite embarrassed, She had to perform well. Mo Chinny felt that it was okay. After all, she knew Choi Yun when she was a girl. However, Chiang Wei was quite surprised that Lin Ruoshi was not stingy to help her solve it. Although she might be pretending to be generous on the surface, Chiang Wei still said, "Thank you," seriously. Guo Shuahua saw all this and couldn't help but put her arm around Yang Cheng's waist. She whispered, "Son, it seems that Ruoshi is much less hostile to your other little lovers now. Maybe you can be more obedient in the future." Yang Cheng smiled and said, "Mom, that's because Ruoshi finally realized that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't cut off the relationship. It wasn't easy for me to endure until now." Guo Shuahua immediately said, "It seems that if I want to have grandchildren in the future, I won't only have one or two. Well, actually, it's better to have more granddaughters. Boys are troublesome, and it's enough to have one to continue the family line." Yang Cheng's face was stiff. He looked at his mother, whose eyes were shining and full of imagination, and felt a headache. To be honest, with his current physical fitness, even Yang Cheng didn't dare to believe his true strength. If he wanted to make women pregnant with his children, even if he started cultivating, it would be impossible within 10 years. Even Kai Ning, who had the highest chance of entering the soul formation stage after entering the innate stage, might not be able to connect with his realm. Sometimes, Yang Cheng would deliberately hide some of his abilities. It wasn't because he liked to keep a low profile, but because he was worried that if he revealed too many abilities that were beyond human imagination, it would cause women to feel distant. It was like falling in love with a life that wasn't his own race. This kind of feeling would probably not be good. Only when the women reached a certain level as soon as possible could Yang Cheng better face them with his true self. Although his comprehension in other aspects was mediocre, Yang Cheng never doubted his talent and luck on the path of cultivation. This also made him feel lonely at the top. At night, Chiang Wei, Mo Chinny, and Ma Guifeng planned to stay in a hotel for the night. Early the next morning, they could go to the police station to cooperate with Choi Yun to apply for the marriage certificate. After Lin Ruoshi and the real estate agent talked about the one-time payment and other issues, the agent immediately sent people to clean the house at night and installed a series of the latest household appliances. They just needed to sign the contract tomorrow and move in. As for the actual situation, the agent didn't dare to hide anything from them. In this materialistic society, as long as one had money, everything seemed very simple. After dealing with a series of problems, Lin Ruoshi took Zhenxiu, Guo Shuahua, and Mother Wang to pack some necessary luggage at home. Tomorrow, they would send some freight cars to transport the things directly. Yang Cheng didn't have anything to bring, so he was purely a coolie, moving things here and there. Fortunately, Yang Cheng didn't have a problem with physical strength at all. He went up and down dozens of times, but he didn't gasp for breath, so he wasn't tired at all. This kind of heroic performance made Lin Ruoshi quite satisfied. When she walked past Yang Cheng, she whispered, "It turns out that you are quite useful." Yang Cheng looked embarrassed. At this point, the value of his life was reflected coolly. After being busy for half the night, the whole family went back to their room to rest. This was also the last night they stayed in the old house. In fact, everyone didn't sleep well, except for Yang Cheng. The next morning, the workers that Lin Ruoshi called for arrived in a truck, and they moved the big bags of luggage into the truck. At this time, Chiang Wei and Mo Chinny, who had quickly completed a series of identification and household registration, came to the scene with Choi Yun. Choi Yun was still wearing her police uniform. When she arrived at the door, she immediately greeted Mother Wang and Guo Shuehua in a lively manner. She said with a smile, "I'm late. They're almost done moving. I wanted to come and help." Mo Chinny walked up from behind and said helplessly, "I told Yonyan that there's no need, but she insisted on coming. Of course, I have to know where you are moving." Choi Yun pouted. The three women had known each other since they were young, and they laughed and chatted happily. Lin Ruoshi smiled and said, "Thank you. You have been very helpful. Make way, make way." At this moment, Yang Chun walked out of the house with a huge stack of books in his arms. Most of them were old books that had been around for a long time. Seeing Choi Yun was also there, Yang Chun grinned and winked at her. Choi Yun glared at him and said, "What are you smiling at? Why are there so many old books? Are you going to move them all?" Yang Chung sighed and said, "I have been moving them from last night to this afternoon. There's no end to the books." "Oh my God, Ruashi, are you going to move all the books in the study to the new house?" Emo Chinny said in surprise. Lin Ruashi looked at the tall and thick books and said, "These were left by Grandma." Hearing this, everyone understood that the books had been in the old CEO's possession since she was a child. It was no wonder that she kept them so carefully. "Let me help you put them in the car." Choi Yun was very enthusiastic. As she spoke, she put the stack of books steadily into a small shipping box. In the process of moving in, a thin, small object suddenly floated down from the stack of books he had picked up. Choi Yun was stunned. She squatted down to pick it up and said, "Ah, it's a very old photo. It's yellow." "Really?" Emo Chinny was a little excited when she heard this. "Is it a photo of the old CEO's grandmother?" Because it fell from the old CEO's book, she naturally thought that it was a photo of the old lady. However, the next moment, the two women frowned slightly. Emo Chinny asked curiously, "Who is this?" "So it's him." Choi Yun, however, recognized him and murmured, "What is it?" Yang Chung was puzzled. Why did the woman have such a strange expression? Choi Yun bit her lower lip and kept the photo. She walked to Mother Wong, who was talking to the workers, and said, "Mother Wong, this photo should be yours. You can keep it." Mother Wong was stunned. She took the photo and didn't say anything at first. However, when her eyes fell on it, her face turned pale and her body trembled. Lin Ruashi suddenly thought of something and said with some resentment, "Yonyan, what are you doing? Have you forgotten what Grandma told us when we were young? Don't mention that person. Why did you show Mother Wong that person's photo?" Chapter 823. Choi Yun didn't expect Lin Ruashi to be so emotional. She stood there awkwardly. I didn't do it on purpose." "It's okay." Mother Wong wiped the corner of her eyes and suddenly stuffed the photo into her pocket. She forced a smile. "Miss, don't blame Miss Choi Yun. She mentioned it because she cared about me." Lin Ruashi walked over with concern and grabbed Mother Wong's hand. "Mother Wong, don't be sad. Don't you have me by your side? Let bygones be bygones. Don't think too much about it. You must be happy." Seeing this scene, not only Yang Chung, but also Chiang Wei, Ma Gue Fong, and the others were astonished. They had never seen the cold Lin Ruashi take the initiative to comfort someone. It seemed that the relationship between this woman and Mother Wong for so many years was hard to understand. Only Mother Wong, who had taken care of Lin Ruashi since she was young, could receive such treatment. Yang Chung saw Choi Yun's guilty face and saw Mother Wong's emotional tears. He was confused. What kind of past did Mother Wong hide? Why did the old CEO tell the two girls not to talk about it since they were young? Looking at Emo Chinny's confused face, Yang Chung was sure that those things happened before Lin Ruashi and Choi Yun were 13 or 14 years old, which was before they entered middle school. At that time, Mother Wong should be a woman in her 30s. Mother Wong tried to hold it in, but after being comforted by Lin Ruashi and seeing how determined the woman was, her tears started to fall again. "Miss, I'll go back to my room and calm down. I'll come out later." Mother Wong wiped her tears and ran back into the house. Seeing Mother Wong's gloomy back as she ran into the room, everyone could feel an inexplicable sadness from her. Lin Ruashi helplessly looked at Kai Yin, who was fiddling with her fingers. She sighed and didn't say anything else. Yang Chung asked in confusion, "What's going on? Who's the person in the photo?" "Don't ask if you don't want Mother Wong to be sad." Lin Ruashi stopped him with a cold expression. Choi Yun continued to move the books obediently and didn't dare to say anything else. Guo Xuehua and Ma Guifeng looked at each other in disbelief. They had been together with Mother Wong for quite some time, but they didn't know that Mother Wong had so many secrets in her past. Even the younger generation didn't dare to mention Mother Wong, and she would burst into tears at the mention of Mother Wong. No matter what, the matter was settled under Lin Ruashi's hard work. After the busy noon, everything was moved to the new mansion in the western suburbs. Choi Yun still had to go back to work at the police station. She went around and returned quietly. But from what Yang Chung saw, the uniformed girl felt guilty. She felt that she was the one who hurt Mother Wong and didn't want to stay any longer. After signing a series of documents with the real estate company, Yang Chung and the workers moved everything into the house. As for the tidying work, it could be done slowly. The location of a new house was in the north of the villas in the western suburbs. The terrain was quite high, and there were only a few high-class houses around the two houses. The trees were lush, and the grass was green. There were also some fountains and bronze sculptures, just like a European royal garden. The style of the interior of the villa was a combination of classic and fashionable, but the soft colors and exquisite materials made the ingenious design feel like a home. The garage was underground like the previous house in Dragon Garden. It was spacious enough to store more than 20 cars at the same time. It gave Lin Ruoshi a good place to display her useless cars. In order to celebrate moving into the new house, there was naturally a sumptuous dinner. However, there weren't any ingredients in the new house. The group of women were busy tidying up their rooms and wardrobes, so they didn't have the time to buy groceries, let alone cook. Thus, in the evening, the two families made an appointment to sit in Lin Ruoshi's Lexus LX 570, intending to find a high-end restaurant nearby for a meal. Yang Chung drove the car and waited for Lin Ruoshi, Jinxiu, and the two elders to get in the car before he drove to Changwei's house. Although they were neighbors, the distance was not short. They were at least 100 meters apart. When Yang Chung was about to drive through an intersection, a black Land Rover happened to be at the stop signal and was about to pass by. The familiar limited edition Land Rover, not to mention Yang Chung, even Lin Ruoshi, who was sitting in the passenger seat, immediately recognized it. At this time, the people in the Land Rover also noticed Yang Chung and Jinxiu, who were sitting in the Lexus. The car window rolled down, and from the passenger seat of the Land Rover, a young and lively little face appeared. The girl waved her arms and shouted excitedly, "Uncle, Big Sister Ruoshi, why are you guys here?" Seeing Tang Dang, Tang Wan, and Land Rover, Yang Cheng's mind flashed with an electric spark. Damn, he really was a pig brain. Didn't he come here before? Wasn't this the courtyard in the western suburbs where Tang Wan and Tang Tang lived? He didn't realize that he had become a neighbor of Tang Wan and her mother. Yang Chung didn't know whether to be happy or cry. In Lin Ruoshi's eyes, he was afraid that he deliberately didn't say it out loud. Ah, could it be that the ones that moved in just now were you and Big Sister Ruoshi? You guys are the new residents? When Tang Tang thought of this, she said coquettishly, "Uncle, you're really something. You didn't even tell us in advance if you wanted to move in. You clearly did it on purpose. You knew that my mother and I also lived here. Did you want to give us a surprise?" As soon as these words came out, Yang Chung felt two cold gazes behind him freeze him. When Lin Ruoshi found out that Tang Wan and her mother also lived here, and in this area, she really thought that Yang Chung was deliberately hiding it. Yang Chung turned his head with a bitter smile. "Wife, if I told you that I really forgot that Tang Wan lived here, would you believe it? What do you think?" Lin Ruoshi asked while gritting her teeth. Yang Chung swallowed his saliva. "I don't think so. You're really capable. Will I find out tomorrow that Mingyu and Anshin are actually living next door to us?" Lin Ruoshi asked with a cold smile. Yang Chung shrunk his shoulders. He didn't know how to answer, afraid that whatever he said would be wrong. Guo Shuahua and Mother Wong sat in the back, pretending not to see or hear anything. On the other hand, Jinxiu covered her mouth and snickered. But since they had met, they naturally had to greet each other. Tang Wan drove the car to the side. She was wearing a black chiffon dress, revealing her snow-white shoulders. She was as graceful and charming as ever. "General Lin, it's really fate that can't be broken no matter what. I was just about to bring Tang Tang out for dinner. It seemed that you guys are the same. Why don't you come together? We'll be neighbors in the future, so we have to be especially close." Tang Wan's face was full of unconcealable joy and pride. In her view, Yang Chung deliberately didn't say it and tricked Lin Ruoshi to come here. So, Tang Wan felt that she had won. Lin Ruoshi knew that if they turned hostile, she would be the one who lost her cool first. So she smiled formally. That's for the best. I'm usually very busy. After one meal, I don't know when the next one will be. In other words, don't think there'll be a next time. You can count yourself lucky this time. Tang Wan didn't mind. She smiled gently at Guo Shuahua and Mother Wang behind the car and nodded. Then, she silently followed behind the Lexus. For the rest of the journey, Yang Cheng felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Lin Ruoxi, who was next to him, felt like she had eaten a nuclear bomb that would explode at any time. Yang Cheng's heart felt like it was being tightened by a rubber band. When Xiang Wei and Mo Chinny got in the car, they were surprised to find out that Tang Wan and her daughter also lived here, and they were neighbors. However, even though they knew Mo Chinny from work, they weren't very familiar with Tang Wan, not to mention Xiang Wei, who was completely unrelated to her. So, the two women's reaction wasn't as big as Lin Ruoxi's. At the same time, the two women understood why Lin Ruoxi's figure was so cold and unapproachable. After the two cars drove together for a section of the highway, they came to a high-end Italian restaurant nearby. This was recommended by Tang Wan and her daughter. Because they live here all year round, they were very familiar with the restaurants in this area. Mo Chinny thought it would be good to take her mother, Ma Gui Fong, to eat Western food, so she didn't have any objection. However, Lin Ruoxi was quite dissatisfied. Why should Tang Wan make the decision? However, when Yang Chan smilingly asked her which restaurant she thought was better, Lin Ruoxi's mind went blank again. How would she know which restaurant was better? Except for the location of the glutinous rice ball shop, President Lin had no impression of other restaurants. The architectural style of this Italian restaurant was quite nostalgic. It was deliberately polished so that the walls and some details in the corners had a sense of vicissitudes and medieval retro style. The dim lights, as well as the half-finished or half-finished wine bottles on the windowsills, gave people a strong sense of Western romance. The head waiter, who was very familiar with Tang Wan and her daughter, was a tall young man with black and yellow hair. After greeting them elegantly, he led the group to the large family dining table on the second floor. Ma Gui Fong and Jin Xiao, who had never been to such a place, were the most nervous, but they were very fresh to everything. After sitting down, the people around the table were talking and laughing. Although Lin Ruoxi and Tang Wan didn't even look at each other once, the two women were good at dealing with situations, so they didn't show much hostility. After ordering, the waiting time seemed very long. Fortunately, the restaurant also provided Italian bread to relieve the hunger of the customers. Other than the one that was taken by Tang Tang, the remaining 7 or 8 were all brought to Yang Cheng, and he took big bites without hesitation. Can't you restrain yourself a little? This isn't just for you, Lin Ruoxi said with a frown. Yang Cheng held the bread and shook it. You guys eat it and you won't be able to eat it later. I have a good appetite, so I can eat it all later and continue eating, so it won't be a waste. Tang Tang pouted, Uncle, you're a pig. I'll be stuffed after eating 2 pieces of that cheese pizza with grilled sausage. You ordered 3 whole pizzas with a steak and 2 servings of spaghetti. If it wasn't for Sister Ruoxi's money, she really wouldn't be able to feed you. Shoo, 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 Yang Cheng said unhappily. What do you know, little girl? If it wasn't for my big appetite, how could I show off my wife's wealth? Also, I told you long ago, I'm the same generation as your Sister Ruoxi. You have to call me brother. Call me after you and ya. You're so immature, yet you still want to marry him? Tang Tang took a bite of the bread. That's simple. I'll call brother you and ya and call you uncle too. Then there won't be a problem with seniority. Yang Cheng immediately choked on the breadcrumbs and wanted to spit it out, but this bickering scene made the others smile happily. Just when Yang Cheng was about to ignore Tang Tang and continue eating bread, a special scene suddenly flashed in the corner in front of him, making him frown slightly. Chapter 824. It was a white waiter wearing a restaurant uniform. He looked gentle and refined, and his appearance was so ordinary that it was impossible to remember his appearance at all. He carried a plate and walked to the dimly lit corner, intending to deliver the food to a middle-aged man and a beautiful woman. The waiter's fingers were abnormally clean. His fingernails were round and meticulous, and his movements were gentle and gentlemanly. After putting down the 2 servings of spaghetti, The waiter put away the plate, bowed, and nodded before turning to leave. The middle-aged man drank a mouthful of red wine, picked up his fork, and prepared to start eating. But before he could put his fork into the noodles, the table in front of him suddenly shook. Bang! The plate of spaghetti suddenly fell to the ground from the earthquake. "What's going on?" The middle-aged man shouted, turned around, and said to the waiter who had not walked far away, "Waiter, what's wrong with your table? Why is it still shaking?" The white waiter did not turn around. Instead, he continued to walk downstairs at the same pace. At this time, Yang Chung stood up and said to the women at the table, "I'm going to the washroom." With that, Yang Chung followed the waiter's footsteps and walked downstairs. Tang Tang muttered, "There's a washroom on the second floor. Uncle is so stupid." Tang Wan reached out and tapped her daughter's head. "You're the only one with a loose mouth. You're already like this before you even get married. In the future, you'll definitely nag Yuan Yi until he goes crazy." Yang Chung, who had walked downstairs, was naturally not really going to the toilet. Instead, he followed closely behind the white waiter, bypassing the front hall and walking to a fire exit at the back of the restaurant. After the white waiter walked to the fire exit, he took off his uniform jacket and threw it into a trash can. Then, he opened the door and walked out. Yang Chung followed with a smile that was not a smile. He also opened the door and stepped out. As soon as he stepped out of the door, a fierce murderous aura directly descended from the sky above his head. Humph! Yang Chung had already expected this and reached out to grab it. A sharp silvery white dagger was caught by Yang Cheng's hand. The Caucasian waiter actually leaped up and climbed onto the wall, waiting for Yang Chung to come out so he could assassinate him from above. The dagger made of fine steel was actually pinched by a hand made of flesh and could not move an inch further. The Caucasian guy directly flipped over and jumped away, looking at Yang Chung in shock. "It's rare for us to have a meal together. It's not appropriate for you to poison him to death on the spot." Yang Chung chuckled. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" The white man asked coldly. Yang Chung took the dagger and looked at it carefully. His eyes flashed with suspicion. After thinking for a moment, he threw the dagger at the white man. He didn't want to kill him, but he wanted to return the dagger. After receiving the dagger, the Caucasian man was especially surprised. He clearly felt that there was a gap between his strength and Yang Cheng's, which was why he didn't immediately run away. But at this moment, it seemed that Yang Chung didn't have any hostility towards him. Yang Chung pondered for a moment, then said solemnly, "The symbol on this dagger belongs to Zero. Are you Zero's killer?" The Caucasian man's eyes were filled with surprise. "Who are you?" Yang Chung continued, "What's going on with Sauron? I remember there's a rule that Zero is not allowed to take orders in Huaxia. You clearly pretended to be a waiter and poisoned that man's macaroni. Who hired you? Or could it be, have you betrayed Zero?" The Caucasian man hesitated for a moment. "You actually called our chief consul by his name. I didn't betray Zero. Although I don't know who you are, our Zero is now allowed to take orders in Huaxia. That was my first time carrying out a mission in Huaxia. I don't understand why you stopped me for no reason. Aren't you afraid of our Zero's revenge?" "What? Allowed?" Yang Chung was amused. "Sauron doesn't have the right to make such a decision. You think I don't know?" The Caucasian man said, "Of course it's not the chief consul's order. It's our Lord Pluto himself. He opened a channel to accept orders in Huaxia." Yang Chung was shocked, and his face darkened. "You mean Pluto gave the order? It seems that you know a lot. You even know who our Lord Pluto is." The Caucasian man said proudly, "Since you know that I'm a killer from Zero and know our Lord Pluto, are you still going to stop my mission?" Yang Chung didn't think that this killer would talk nonsense, and Sauron was even less likely to betray him. Then, there was only one reason. He was impersonated again. Damn it! How dare he impersonate me and give orders to my subordinates? Yang Chung reached out to the Caucasian man and said, "Give me the phone for communication." The Caucasian man was a little surprised, but after some hesitation, he still threw the phone to Yang Chung. Yang Chung dialed Sauron's special line. This number was not known to low-level killers. When the call was connected, Sauron said with some surprise, "Your Majesty Pluto, why are you calling again? You called twice yesterday, and today is the third time. What a rare frequency. The third time? Damn it, I only called twice. Yang Cheng was more and more sure of his guess. Sauron, did I contact you a second time? Yang Cheng asked quickly. Sauron said doubtfully, Your Excellency, your joke is not funny at all. Didn't we give me orders last night, Huaxia time? We talked about a lot of things. Yang Cheng scolded, Bastard. Sauron, did your brain get kicked by a donkey? Or did the grapes ferment after soaking in the wine barrel? How could I suddenly change such an important decision, and without any warning at all? Don't you think it's strange? Seeing all this and hearing all this, the Caucasian killer standing not far from Yang Cheng was stunned. He suddenly realized who Yang Cheng was. Sauron was silent for a while on the other end, then said innocently in an old-fashioned voice, Your Excellency, I'm a little dizzy. I really don't understand why you are angry. Yang Cheng walked a few circles in the same place, then calmed down and said, Sauron, that damn hidden enemy is more despicable than I thought, but also more powerful than I thought. Enemy? Sauron was particularly puzzled. Your Excellency, what is going on? It's not me who gave you orders. It's someone who impersonated me. What? Sauron shouted directly on the other end of the phone, obviously shocked. Yang Cheng immediately mentioned the man who looked exactly like him above the sea, as well as the Caucasian assassin who was carrying out the mission he met earlier. If I hadn't run into this guy trying to poison a Huaxiao person in time, I would probably be suspected by a group of people, Yang Cheng said in distress. The other party obviously wants Huaxia to be suspicious and hostile towards me. Sauron suppressed his anger and said, I will immediately cancel the order given by that beast. Damn it. This is simply a humiliation to me and Zero. Yang Cheng asked, How did that bastard contact you? And what orders did he give? He contacted me through the network channel you usually use and even made a video call. At that time, I thought it was strange. Why would you contact me in a place similar to a laboratory? But I never thought that you would have someone impersonate you and even video call me. At that time, that impersonator also asked me to sell some arms and gave orders to some mercenaries in the Middle East and North Africa to carry out some combat missions. Now it seems that he is simply trying to stir up disputes between countries and then put the hat of the culprit on your head. Sauron said angrily. He even knows my contact channel with you? Yang Cheng's face was full of murderous intent. Our communication channel is specially encrypted, and it was designed for us by Jane back then. That person's wisdom, it's really admirable. Your Excellency, this is actually a good thing, Sauron suddenly said with a smile. Oh, why do you say that? Yang Cheng asked. Before, we couldn't do anything to the guy who impersonated you, because he can use the laws of space, and no one can punish him except you. And the most important thing is, we don't know where he is. But this time, the other party used the network and deliberately broke the firewall set by Princess Jane. Then, as long as we ask Princess Jane to help us detect and track, we can roughly lock the area where the other party is. Princess Jane may even know who in the world has the ability to do all this. Sauron said. Yang Cheng's mouth showed a smile. I almost forgot that Jane still had such a trick up her sleeve. Your Excellency, I will immediately cancel those orders. It's not too late, and the damage should be able to be appeased. Also, I will immediately contact Princess Jane, Sauron said. Yang Cheng agreed. Last time I asked you to continue to send more sea eagles. How long will it take for them to arrive? Sauron said. They will arrive within this week at the latest because the sea eagles are scattered all over the world. It's a bit tight to gather 2 squads at once. Okay, you go do your work. If you have caused any losses, objectively compensate them. If the other party is too troublesome, then do as you see fit. I don't need to teach you how to kill and set fire. If you can't solve it, then contact me, Yang Cheng said. After Sauron promised, he hung up the phone. Yang Cheng exhaled, threw the phone back to the white assassin, and said, Go back to Europe. It's not your fault this time. Don't blame yourself. Yes, Your Excellency Pluto. The white assassin suddenly knelt on the ground, his head on the ground, and said loudly, full of gratitude and excitement, Yang Cheng didn't have much time to feel this kind of worship. When he turned around and returned to the restaurant, his face was still dark. Chapter 825. Yang Cheng was very angry, even angrier than the last time when he was impersonated. This was because it had already started to affect his friends, and it had even started to cause a commotion on a global scale, using his power and name. This was tantamount to slapping his face, secretly mocking his ignorance. Yang Cheng had already made up his mind. Once Jane found a guy who was secretly causing trouble, regardless of his background, he would go and kill him. Even Buddha would have some anger, let alone a devil. Moreover, Yang Cheng also realized a rather serious crisis. Since the other party looked exactly like him and was so familiar with his background, it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't impersonate him to harm the people around him, especially since he had a lot of women. If they were deceived and bullied, how could it be? Yang Cheng thought about it. Even with the protection of the Sea Eagles, the other party's methods weren't something that the Sea Eagles could control. If the women didn't have the awareness to guard themselves, it would be very dangerous. He couldn't let the people around him be kept in the dark anymore. He had to tell them everything that happened on the Pacific Ocean, as well as the cause and effect of the enemy he was going to face next. Otherwise, if something happened, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Moreover, since he was going to start teaching the women cultivation, it was time to briefly introduce the whole new world to them. Returning to the second floor of the restaurant, a sumptuous Italian meal was already on the table. The women were eating, talking, and laughing. After Yang Cheng returned to his seat, he said, "After dinner, I have something more important to tell everyone. Let's go home together." Guo Shuihua asked, "Son, what's the matter? Why are you so secretive?" Yang Cheng pursed his lips and smiled. "Mom, you'll know later. It'll affect your appetite if I tell you now. Anyway, you'll hear a rather sci-fi story later, and your eyes will be dazzled." Still keeping me in suspense, Guo Shuihua scolded with a smile. Lin Ruoshi, on the other hand, revealed a hint of thought, but she still remained quiet. Although Yang Cheng refused to talk during dinner, everyone obviously ate faster, so they didn't say much. After dinner, they paid the bill and drove home. On the way home, in front of his family, Yang Cheng called Anshin, Lu Mingyu, and Choi Yun, who just left in the afternoon, and asked the three women to come to the new house. As for Yang Cheng's sudden move, Lu Mingyu already knew because she worked at Yulei International, but Anshin had been busy these days, so she was a little surprised. Since it was a Monday, and Xin and Lu Mingyu were working overtime at the company. However, Yang Chen's tone didn't allow for any objections, so the women obediently agreed and drove over immediately. Although Lin Ruoshi had already guessed what Yang Cheng was going to do, she still frowned slightly, and there was a trace of sadness that couldn't be resolved. The woman was still thinking about how to treat this group of women later. At this moment, Yang Cheng couldn't care too much. Compared to the awkward situation, the safety of the women was more important. About half an hour later, 3 different colored cars stopped outside the villa. It was Anshin, Lu Mingyu, and Choi Yun. After the 3 women got out of the car, they looked at each other. Anshin and Lu Mingyu knew each other, but they weren't familiar with Choi Yun. But as soon as they met each other, they basically understood that Yang Cheng was going to call all his lovers for a meeting. In the living room, the atmosphere was already very strange. Fortunately, the entire mansion was hundreds of square meters large enough, and the living room was even more spacious. There were a lot of sofas, enough for about 20 people to sit on, so that there was more breathing space. Yang Cheng wasn't in the living room. As soon as he arrived home, he said that he needed to contact some people, and then went upstairs to work and didn't come down. As the hostess, Lin Ruoshi seemed to be very natural, but her expression was quite cold. She helped Mother Wang to make tea for the people present. In addition to their own family, Chiang Wei, Imo Chinni, and Tang Wen were already seated. They didn't talk loudly, because they weren't very familiar with each other after all. When Anshin and the other 2 came in, the atmosphere froze for a while. They first glanced at each other's faces, and then they all smiled shyly. "You're here." Guo Shuihua stood up and said with a smile, "I know Anshin and Choi Yun. You're Mingyu, right? Yang Cheng just told me that you're coming, and that kid." Sigh, I don't know what to say. Come on, don't be so polite, sit down. When Lu Mingyu found out that this young woman was Yang Cheng's mother, she was surprised at first. Then she hurried to greet her in a soft voice. She was a little nervous. When Lin Ruoxi came over to make tea for them, Lu Mingyu and An Xin were both startled. Don't. General Lin, how can I let you? Lu Mingyu hurried to stop her. Lin Ruoxi revealed a faint smile for the first time. Don't call me General Lin at home. I'm a few years younger than you. Just call me Ruoxi outside. After interacting with Lin Ruoxi for a few times, Choi Yun's previous ill feelings had mostly disappeared. She was a lively person, so she giggled and said, "Yeah, we'll be spending a lot of time together in the future. We should be more intimate." But before she could finish her sentence, Lin Ruoxi's cold gaze swept over her. Her meaning was obvious. Don't tell me you're the one who decides everything in the future. Choi Yun choked on her words, turned her head away, and didn't say anything. Seeing this scene, Guishuahua chuckled. Ruoxi, don't glare at Yin Air. Although she's a police chief, she's scared of you from the bottom of her heart. Yin Air is a straightforward person. I can see that even though we've only met twice, it's not like you don't know. Choi Yun nodded eagerly, looking at Guishuahua with excitement, as if she had found a soulmate, and agreed wholeheartedly. Lin Ruoxi was a little uncomfortable with her mother-in-law helping Choi Yun, so she muttered, I didn't say anything, but Sister Ruoxi's gaze was so scary just now, I felt a chill just sitting here. On the other sofa, Tang Tang, who was leaning on Tang Wan, muttered. Tang Wan quickly covered her daughter's mouth and said anxiously, Stupid girl, don't talk nonsense. This is a central air conditioner. Lin Ruoxi couldn't help but roll her eyes. How can the air conditioner be so strong? She sighed, turned around, and asked An Xin, Tell me, am I very fierce? An Xin was traumatized by Lin Ruoxi. When she was dragged to play the hoop game, she was tormented to tears. Being asked by Lin Ruoxi, she knew that she should deny it, but she couldn't help but shrink her head and murmured softly, No, not fierce. This way, it was a complete hypocrisy. Seeing and hearing all this, Zhenxiu, who had been holding it in, finally burst out laughing. Both her hands slapped on the sofa, and her two exposed legs even kicked high into the air. She was as happy as she could be. Lin Ruoxi blushed, walked over, and pinched Zhenxiu's little face. What are you laughing at? I've doted on you for nothing. Zhenxiu opened her big, watery eyes innocently. But it's really funny. Lin Ruoxi couldn't help but stomp her feet in anger. She felt that she couldn't stay in the living room anymore, so she quickly ran back to the kitchen to help Mother Wang. But because of this scene that caused everyone to laugh, the atmosphere was much more relaxed. After more than 10 minutes, Yang Chen finally ran down from upstairs. Previously, Hanya from Yamada sect had contacted him and told Yang Cheng that a group of elite ninjas from Yamada sect had entered Huaxia. Their regular identities were some employees of some Japanese companies, and she asked Yang Cheng how to deploy them. Yang Cheng directly sent this group of ninjas to Yanjing, leaving only a small number of them in Zhonghai. This was because ninjas were better at acting as scouts, and he didn't have many eyes and ears in Yanjing. With this group of guys, he could find the enemy's position as soon as possible, especially the secret base of Yanbuan. Since Kai Yunxing and the others weren't willing to tell him, it wouldn't be a problem for him to find it himself. Seeing that the living room was already full of women, Yang Cheng was a little happy. Each of them had a different temperament, but they were all charming and graceful. If one day they all lived together and slept together, how comfortable would his life be? But the matter in his heart made Yang Cheng not have much mood to joke around. He walked to the center of the living room and sighed, I called you all here today because there are some things that have to be said. For your safety, I hope that everyone can quietly wait for me to say everything before asking questions, because the things that I have to say are a little complicated. Yang Cheng's suspenseful opening made all the women feel particularly nervous. This guy who was always frivolous was rarely serious, which made them feel uncomfortable. Chapter 826. Many people always yearn for some illusory myths and fairy tales, But when many seemingly illusory things really appeared in the originally ordinary world, the impact was huge. There was an ancient saying, Lord Yi loves dragons. When a dragon really appeared, it could scare Lord Yi to death. This night was destined to be a sleepless night for the women. In the villa under the night sky, the lights were kept on. It was not until the wee hours of the morning that the women drove their respective cars home. However, the series of things that they heard from Yang Cheng, if they did not know for sure that they were awake, they would have thought that it was all a dream. The matter of cultivation was not too bad, because Yang Cheng had displayed superhuman strength many times. However, even the clone Yang Cheng had appeared, and he had easily destroyed a fleet. How could the women accept it all at once? Fortunately, Yang Cheng had confirmed some secret codes with each of them that only they knew, and he would definitely send more people to protect them in secret. Only then did they feel a little relieved. However, Tang Dang, Jin Xiu, Guo Mother Wang, Ma Guifeng, and the others who were not mentally prepared before had such a huge impact that they all began to stare blankly in the end. However, the difference was that Tang Tang and Jin Xiu were full of hope, and they begged Yang Cheng to teach them cultivation. Yang Cheng did not mind, thinking that there would be more people wanting to cultivate in the future. It did not matter. After all, getting started and really achieving results were two different things. However, just like the other women, he said that he had to persevere in training. In the future, cultivation would require even more patience and comprehension. As for the elders such as Guo Xiuhua, Mother Wang, and Ma Guifeng, there was no need for them to say anything. Yang Cheng also planned to teach them. However, their bodies were already relatively old. Even if they could start cultivating, their speed would definitely be extremely slow, and they might only be able to provide some health care. In this family meeting, what caught Yang Cheng's attention the most was Lin Ruoshi's attitude. Over the past few days, Lin Ruoshi had become much more relaxed about her amorous temperament than before. Although she didn't give him a good look when he interacted with other women, she didn't give him a cold war either. Other than Kai Ning, this was the first time the women were together. There were no conflicts, no quarrels, and they were all quite friendly. Although they all had their own plans, Yang Cheng was already very satisfied. 4 days later, June 22nd, summer solstice. 2 teams from the Sea Eagles had already arrived in Zhonghai 3 days ago. After being integrated into Mulin's team, they were under unified command. All of them were responsible for protecting the women and family that Yang Cheng valued. As Huaxia had opened up the channels of the military this time, the various advanced equipment brought and was also much more powerful than in the past. Yang Cheng had given each of the women a nanotechnology alarm that could be easily carried around. Once there was a crisis, he would instantly know their location. At the same time, he also had a tracking device on him, so that the Sea Eagles would be able to identify the other Yang Cheng if they found him. However, what made Yang Cheng depressed was that the bastard who impersonated him didn't show up even after all these preparations. He had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. In the end, he could only run back and forth between Tang Wan's residence, Chiang Wei's, and Mo Qian's residence in the middle of the night. He was even caught by Lin Ruoshi knocking on his door in the middle of the night. The next day, it was inevitably cold and windy again. On a summer morning, on the hills behind the western suburbs villas, the lush, dark green canopies of the trees were intertwined. The road had not been developed, and the only path overgrown with weeds was made by the workers when they first went up to erect the iron tower. On the top of the mountain, an inexplicable force suddenly opened up a flat yellow mud platform about 100 square meters, as if a large piece of the mountain had been shaved off. At the center of the mountain, there was a neat and smooth platform made of fresh wood. Chiang Wei, who was wearing a casual white t-shirt and red sweatpants, was sitting cross-legged on the platform with her eyes closed. She didn't move an inch despite the cool breeze blowing her hair. In the past few days, Yang Cheng had passed on the cultivation method to Chiang Wei and Choi Yun, who already had a good physique. Chiang Wei's perseverance and hard work made her run to the mountain on time after she finished practicing martial arts every day. She would practice according to the inner qi that Yang Cheng had taught her, which she had never learned before. At first, Xiangwei was a little nervous because she didn't know how good her perception was, but the progress was gratifying. When Yang Cheng guided her to practice the inner qi for the first time, Xiangwei immediately experienced this sense of qi, which meant that she had entered the threshold of inner qi during her first practice. Yang Cheng was also very surprised at that time. Although 90% of people could eventually have the sense of qi after hard work, she could feel it during her first practice, which showed that she had a very good perception of inner qi. After being encouraged, Xiangwei was very diligent. Although she had only practiced for 3 days, Xiangwei clearly felt that she was very energetic. She would be out of breath 2 days ago when she ran up the mountain, but today she didn't have any difficulty at all. Yang Cheng had read all the classics in the Tower of Scrolls, and through his own understanding of the endless resolve restoration scripture and the way of heaven, he had refined a unique inner qi that couldn't be compared to ordinary inner qi. Because most of the founders of those sects were in the Xiantian realm, the support they could provide was to treat the Xiantian realm as the limit. The world that Yang Chun saw was on a completely different level. The techniques that he refined didn't take the Xiantian realm seriously at all. Naturally, it seemed like he was progressing rapidly. There was no sunlight in the sky. The weather in summer was always very changeable. Not long after, dark clouds suddenly rose and surged. Soon, lightning suddenly appeared and thunder rumbled. Xiangwei opened her beautiful eyes helplessly and sighed. Seeing that it was going to rain, she had to go down the mountain first. She had originally planned to continue practicing for an hour. According to Yang Cheng, the time needed to practice was not too long. It was important to practice step by step, but it was better to practice at the top of the mountain or in the forest where the air was fresh and natural. This was because the turbid air in the city was too heavy. Moreover, at the top of the mountain, one could avoid the noise and be in a certain state of meditation. However, when Xiangwei was about to get up, a voice stopped her. "Don't get up. Continue practicing." Xiangwei turned around and was surprised to see that Yang Cheng was standing behind her. "Hubby, why are you here?" Xiangwei was a little surprised. She couldn't help but think of something and said for no reason, "How many seconds should we look at each other?" Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. 10 seconds. Xiangwei heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "You scared me to death. I thought that the bad guy from the clone came. Why did you appear so early in the morning?" Yang Cheng said with a smile, "Even if that guy came, he would appear at night when you were sleeping. Why would he come see you practice so early in the morning?" "Hubby, you were here early?" Xiangwei asked curiously. Yang Cheng nodded. "Actually, I came to see you practice 2 days ago. After all, you have just started, so I was a little worried. However, in order not to disturb your state of mind, I didn't disturb you. Xiangwei, darling, don't get up. Just continue practicing." Xiangwei hesitated. "But there's going to be a thunderstorm later." "It's going to be a thunderstorm," Yang Cheng explained. "Heavenly thunder, winter rain, and snow are the most concrete laws of heaven and earth. If you carefully experience the rain and lightning, you will have a higher chance of coming into contact with something on a deeper level." The biggest difference between the cultivation technique I taught you and other cultivation techniques is that the foundation of other cultivation techniques is to plunder the heaven and earth, while my cultivation technique is to merge with the heaven and earth. It's easy to say, but to really do it, it still requires opportunity and comprehension. Cultivation is different from martial arts. Only ordinary people would put qi refinement as their first priority. In fact, the most fundamental thing is to increase one's realm. As long as one's realm is increased, everything else is just like loading bullets into an empty magazine. Pure qi refinement is unable to truly step into the Xiantian realm. Only by continuously comprehending the heavenly Tao that you have comprehended will you have the chance to step into the deity transformation realm that I mentioned. I can't help you with this, but all kinds of living beings and natural phenomena in the world can become the breakthrough point for your cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. Yang Cheng remembered very clearly that when he first stepped into the deity transformation realm, it was because he saw an ant nest in the morning after being drenched in the rain for an entire night. Only then did he comprehend his own Tao. Although he couldn't hope that Xiang Wei would have the same opportunity, it was always good to have more experience. Xiang Wei nodded her head, not fully understanding. She began to sit down patiently and closed her eyes, waiting for the thunderstorm to descend. Yang Cheng didn't leave either. By observing Xiang Wei's cultivation process, he also wanted to gain some experience and continuously perfect his own cultivation technique. Not long after a thunderclap resounded through the heaven and earth, heavy rain poured down. The splashing rain washed the whole world. In the darkness, the mountain wind roared, and the swaying branches were torn in the wind. Sitting in the rain, Xiang Wei let the rain soak her clothes instantly. All her hair was wet and stuck to the side of her face. At first, her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, but after being drenched for more than 10 minutes, she seemed to gradually enter the state of mind, and her eyebrows relaxed. In the darkness, the woman on the top of the mountain was like a grain of dust in the vastness. Gradually, Xiang Wei, who was searching for the sense of qi to operate the technique, forgot everything around her, but she clearly saw everything in the world. The slight contact between the raindrops and her skin was like a clear picture flashing in front of her eyes. Time passed by minute. The pouring rain seemed to have thoroughly drenched the world and relieved the air. As the thunder gradually faded, the rain that had lasted for more than half an hour also stopped. Xiang Wei, who hadn't looked at her during the whole process, slowly opened her eyes in the sound of a bird chirping after the rain. Her eyelashes that were dripping with water trembled slightly. Chapter 827. At this time, Yang Cheng slowly walked to the platform and squatted down. His body was already wet, and the woman was drenched in the rain, so, of course, he had to accompany her. "How is it? Do you feel anything new?" Yang Cheng asked softly. Xiang Wei raised her head and suddenly murmured, "The raindrops in front of me are not the raindrops that fall in front of me, huh?" Xiang Wei was also confused by the game and pouted, "I feel a little bit, but I don't understand what it is." Yang Cheng smiled and said, "Okay, there's a little bit of progress. Take it slowly. You have just started. Even if my internal force cultivation will improve very quickly, the problem of the realm can't be rushed." Xiang Wei smiled and slowly stood up. Because of the rain, all the clothes on her body were tightly attached to the soft and charming body. The two peaks on her chest stood proudly and trembled slightly, and the small protruding tips could be seen. On the wet hair, the water drops kept falling, making the white and tight face particularly seductive and attractive. Yang Cheng's eyes were a little dazed. This kind of hazy beauty is more exciting than the direct naked. Seeing the man staring at her, Xiang Wei was not shy. Instead, she gave him a coquettish look. "Husband, let's go down the mountain. If we go on like this, my eyes will fall out." Yang Chun slapped the woman's buttocks. With a loud smack, the flesh on her buttocks shook a little. "Acting as a vixen early in the morning. If it weren't for the wet mud everywhere, I would have finished you on the spot." Yang Cheng smiled evilly. Xiang Wei giggled and took 2 steps to go down the mountain. But when she lifted her foot, she found that it was really as Yang Cheng said. The top of the mountain road and the mountain road were all muddy because of the soft soil. If she stepped on it like this, a pair of white sneakers would be dyed yellow. More importantly, Xiang Wei was a woman after all, and she was very clean. When she saw this section of the road, she was a little unwilling to walk. However, because of this, Xiang Wei thought of something. She turned around and said shyly, "Hubby, can you carry me down the mountain?" Yang Qing thought for a moment and immediately understood the woman's thoughts. She was taking the opportunity to find romance. After hesitating for a moment, Yang Qing shook his head. "No, I won't carry you." However, before the woman could turn around and continue walking, Yang Qing rushed forward from behind, bent down, and picked up the woman. But before she could turn around and continue walking, Yang Chun rushed forward from behind, bent down, and carried her in his arms. "Ah!" Rose exclaimed. Obviously, she was not mentally prepared to be picked up by someone. Hooking onto Yang Chin's neck, Rose happily asked, "Didn't you say you wouldn't carry me? But I can carry you." Yang Chun smiled as he walked. "Why are you hugging me?" Yang Chun blinked, because only by hugging you can I stare at your face and look good to my heart's content." A wave of sweetness welled up in her heart. Xiang Wei couldn't help but lift her body up, and her plump red lips kissed Yang Cheng. Her tender tongue licked her lips, bringing with it a trace of moisture. Xiang Wei said seductively, "Not only can I see your face, I can also do something else." After the rain, the mountain scenery was empty. On the winding mountain road, under the green scenery, the chirping of the birds, after the two of them went down the mountain, they held hands and chatted for a while. After sending Xiang Wei home, Yang Cheng went back to drive to Yulei Entertainment to work. When he arrived at the office, there was already a tall beauty wearing a light purple uniform sitting at the side of the office, busy with work. When she saw Yang Cheng enter, she immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. "Good morning, master." She had a mature and charming face full of oriental charm, thick arched eyebrows, and red lips that were as red as blood. She was the current leader of Yamada's sect, Hanya. Ever since a large number of elites of Yamada's sect could enter Huaxia, Hanya finally had an excuse to stay by Yang Cheng's side. Because many of the core ninjas were in Huaxia, she, as the leader, could be said to be here to discipline her subordinates so that they could better manage the front line and work in Zhonghai. Yang Cheng knew that this woman couldn't get rid of her deep-rooted slave nature. Since she was young, she was trained by Noriko Okawa to become an assassin who only knew how to obey orders to survive. Noriko Okawa even took away her chastity with one hand, so her heart was also twisted. Once Noriko Okawa died, she lost her backbone and felt uncomfortable all over. On top of that, he returned her dignity and freedom to her, so this female ninja poured all her heart and soul into him. Since she insisted on coming, and he was indeed in need of manpower, Yang Cheng let her take over Anshin's position and help him take care of the company's daily affairs. This matter naturally went through Lin Ruashi's approval. Yang Cheng also told Lin Ruashi about Hanya's true identity, and Lin Ruashi agreed without any hesitation. When it came to the safety of the people around her, even Yang Cheng admired the woman's generosity. It seemed that it wasn't that Lin Ruashi didn't want to compete with him anymore, but the woman was keenly aware of the recent crisis. She couldn't stand the Cold War between husband and wife anymore, so she temporarily suppressed her dissatisfaction. After all, Hanya was a talent who could manage Yamada's sect. Managing an entertainment company was a piece of cake for her, and she was even better at it than Yang Cheng. When Yang Cheng came to work, he spent most of his time listening to her and Mullen's report. He couldn't let go of any clues and had to find the enemy's nest as soon as possible. Sitting in his seat, Yang Cheng asked, "What's the progress?" Hanya replied seriously, "The Jonins in Beijing have found 3 secret military research facilities, but because the security is very tight and the way to enter isn't clear, they're looking for opportunities to get close and spy on them. We expect to get the results the day after tomorrow at the latest. If the 3 facilities aren't Yin Buin's laboratory, then we need to spread to other surrounding cities or consider whether it's in other provinces." Yang Cheng nodded. "What about Yin Buin's movements? What's the situation with the Yin family?" "Master, Yin Buin hasn't shown up for almost 2 weeks. Our people can't find out where he is. The Yin family seems to be very nervous recently. The head of the Yin family, Yin Buin's grandfather, Hua Xia's vice president, Yin Xingtian, claimed to be sick and didn't attend 2 central committee meetings recently. As far as we know, he's secretly looking for Yin Buin. It seems that Yin Buin didn't even tell his family why." Yang Cheng chuckled. "What a guy with a personality. If he didn't have to go against me, I wouldn't have killed him." Hanya was puzzled. "Master, Princess Jane hasn't confirmed that the channel was broken through by Yin Buin. Logically speaking, shouldn't Yin Buin have no grievances with you? Why do you seem to be convinced that he's the mastermind?" "Actually, when I first saw him, I could almost conclude that he was the one who did many things," Yang Cheng said faintly. Hanya was stunned. She obviously didn't understand what Yang Cheng meant. Yang Cheng glanced at her. "Hanya, are you afraid of me?" Hanya couldn't help but shiver. She lowered her head, and her chin could almost touch her plump chest. "Yes, that's it." Yang Cheng smiled without interest. "You're afraid of me because you know my background. You know how I came all the way and what kind of things I've done. Not only you, but even Sauron, Make-Don, Ron, and the others, although I've always been very relaxed with them and treated them as friends, in fact, they're still afraid of me deep down in their hearts. This is also why I never felt that I had real friends before I returned to Huaxia. Henya looked up and said in surprise, "Could it be Yin Buin isn't afraid of you?" Yang Chung shook his head. "He's not afraid of me. I can't see any fear from him. But he clearly knows my past, because he's one of the core figures in the military. He's a genius who's almost on par with Jane. There's no reason for him not to know my background. But Yin Buin acted like an equal in front of me, and even had a hint of provocation. At that time, I roughly guessed that he would be a top figure, but I didn't expect that this guy's target would actually be me. I've always wondered what kind of enmity he has with me, and why is he so confident? That's all." Hanya seemed to have understood something, and then said seriously, "Master, you're definitely stronger than Yin Buin. He's ignorant." Yang Chung was stunned. Looking at the serious face of the female ninja, he couldn't help but laugh. At this time, Yang Cheng's phone vibrated. Yang Chung took a look. It was a British number, and immediately knew who it was. "Jane, is there a result?" Jane, who was on the other side, yawned and said with a lazy tone, "My guess is correct. The origin of the intrusion is in Xia's Beijing, but the specific location, I can only confirm that it's in the northwest direction. Because the other party didn't use a regular IP, I can't continue tracking. But I can guarantee that other than Yin Buin, the only person in Huaxia who has the ability to do this is Huaxia's cradle of computer geniuses. Northwest." Yang Chung asked Hanya, "Are there any of the 3 military research laboratories in the northwest direction of Beijing?" Hanya hurriedly nodded. "Yes, that laboratory is located in the mountain. It's the most difficult to enter." Yang Chung grinned. "Looks like this time I can go and catch him." "Yang Chung, are you really planning to make a move?" "As far as I know, Yin Buin's position in Huaxia isn't low," Jane said with some worry. I don't care who he is. He made my life so messy. If I didn't hide well, I wouldn't have been able to wait until now. The Security Bureau and the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade didn't let me kill him. Do they really think I'll give them face?" Yang Chung sneered. At this moment, the killing intent in the man's eyes made Hanya, who was an assassin, retreat 3 steps, her body shivering. Chapter 828. Since he had confirmed the location of the laboratory, Yang Chung did not want to stay any longer. After asking Hanya to tell him the exact location, he got up and prepared to leave for Beijing. But before he could move, his phone let out an ear-piercing beep. After modification, the phone was equipped with an alarm function. Whenever the members of Sea Eagles discovered a situation or the women activated the device they carried with them, it would make this noise. Yang Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He picked up the phone and saw that it was an alarm from Anshin's location. He did not expect that the situation that had not appeared for the past few days would appear right after he found out the person's location. At the same time, in the core of the family's mansion, which was also the master's living room. Ever since Zaihuan was arrested and sent to prison, this had become Anshin's residence. The pinkish-white curtains fluttered in the wind. Usually, the windows were tightly shut when the air conditioner was turned on, but at that moment, the windows were opened because of a figure that suddenly barged in. A plain-looking young man wearing a tight black short-sleeved shirt and light-colored jeans was standing in front of the window with his head tilted and a sinister smile on his face. Sunlight shone through his back, making the man's figure look especially hazy and sinister. Anshin was wearing a white floral round-neck nightdress. Her pretty face without any makeup was full of panic. Her watery eyes were wide open, and her pair of bare feet kept retreating. As the current chairman of the Ann's group, Anshin did not go to work early. Because no one cared about her, she naturally did as she pleased. Usually, she would wake up after 8 o'clock. The training plan that Yang Chung taught her was also different from other girls. She chose to do it after work. Yang Chung allowed all of this, but he had no choice. But today, as soon as she opened her eyes, she suddenly heard the sound of metal breaking from the window. Then the huge window was pushed open from the outside, It was as if the person purposely wanted Anshin to see it. When Anshin turned around and saw the man in the room, she was stunned for more than 10 seconds. Yang Cheng, old. Just as he was about to shout, Anshin immediately realized that something was wrong. Although this man looked exactly the same as Yang Cheng, there was no trace of gentleness in his eyes. His expression was as sinister as a viper's. You're a clone," an Xin exclaimed in shock. She subconsciously almost tumbled off the bed. She stepped on the floor to retreat, but at the same time, an Xin pressed a button on her bracelet. In fact, even if Anshin didn't press the alarm herself, the sea eagles who were protecting the woman would have noticed the commotion. However, Yang Cheng had specifically reminded them to only sound the alarm when clones appeared and not to fight. Therefore, the members of the Sea Eagles could only hide in the dark. The fake Yang Cheng smiled cruelly. "Don't worry, you don't have to be so afraid. I have no interest in killing you. When your man comes, I'll humiliate you in front of him. Wouldn't that be a greater sense of accomplishment?" Anshin's pretty face was pale, and her lips were trembling. Her mind was blank. Right at this moment, a figure appeared behind the fake Yang Chun, grabbing the man's neck with one hand without warning. "Humiliate? Are you talking about yourself?" The person who had teleported here was Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng's anger had reached a whole new level. The murderous intent in his eyes was so thick that it could materialize. Anshin, on the other hand, was overjoyed. She finally let out a sigh of relief. When the clone's neck was grabbed, there was a flash of panic in his eyes. However, he quickly put on a look of disdain. "Let's see if you're qualified. Hades, go to hell." As soon as the clone's voice fell, the space around them changed. Countless pieces of space were torn apart. Yang Cheng's expression did not change. He mobilized the Heaven and Earth Restoration Force and built an invisible wall that blocked all the torn space within a small area so that it would not affect Anshin's position. Even so, the area around the two of them was completely shattered and scattered. Yang Cheng did not move an inch. He sneered. "Although I don't know what kind of god you are, the law of space is not that impressive. Is Yin Buin out of his mind, but did he send you here to die?" The clone said, "This is just the appetizer. Next is the main course." All of a sudden, a chaotic aura that he had never felt before struck Yang Cheng's mind like a bolt of lightning. Yang Cheng cursed under his breath. However, it was too late. A power that felt like it was about to tear his body apart and freeze his blood caused Yang Cheng's body to stiffen. This invisible power was very similar to his Heaven and Earth Restoration Force. They were both shapeless and formless. However, the difference was that the Heaven and Earth Restoration Force was a mysterious power that could disintegrate everything. This power was about to freeze everything. "Die!" the clone roared. Taking advantage of the moment when Yang Cheng was unable to move, he turned around and kicked Yang Cheng out of the window with the mysterious power. Yang Cheng's eyes were bloodshot. He grunted and mobilized the Heaven and Earth Restoration Force. The Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture was activated, and the power that was restraining him crumbled. Standing in midair, Yang Cheng waved his hand, and a palm print was pushed out towards the clone. "You're the one who should die." The clone used the mysterious power to block the attack fearlessly. However, the moment they made contact, the Heaven and Earth Restoration energy that was even more powerful shattered the clone's power the moment it came into contact with it. It was as if an eggshell had been smashed by a boulder, and the egg had exploded into pieces. The clone's eyeballs looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets. In his horrified expression, Yang Chen's huge palm print smashed him into a puddle of blood. Boom, boom, boom. The concrete of the mansion was crushed like a pancake. A puddle of blood, and the clone's skin were buried deep in a hole. The Sea Eagles and Anshin, who were hiding in the dark, saw this scene. Although it only lasted for less than 10 seconds, it was enough to scare everyone. Yang Cheng slowly descended like a god of war. His murderous aura did not dissipate because he could feel that the clone was not dead. Sure enough, before Yang Cheng could think any further, the human skin and the blood around it began to condense rapidly. The mysterious power was like a perfect sculptor. It reforged the clone right in front of everyone's eyes. The clone looked exactly the same as before. Other than the fact that his face was pale and he looked much weaker, there was nothing strange about him, as expected of a man that our master views as a rival. Interesting, interesting. New Pluto, you're stronger than I thought, the clone said. Yang Cheng was extremely shocked. Initially, he thought that as long as he destroyed the clone's body, he would not be a threat even if the clone had the ability to reincarnate. With his current strength, as long as he was not at the level of the 12 overgods, he could use the heaven and earth restoration energy to shatter the clone's soul easily. However, he did not expect that the clone did not intend to reincarnate at all. Instead, he used the mysterious power to be reborn. Is this the power that Yin Buin gave you? Yang Cheng's heart sank. He had never heard of such a power, and it could even hurt him. If it was not for the fact that the clone clearly had a powerful, mysterious power that was comparable to his endless resolve restoration scripture, he might have been at a disadvantage. The clone said proudly, "That's right. It was our master, Yin Buin, who gave us rebirth. No, it's eternal life. He will be the true ruler in the future. Even Zeus and Athena will not be a match for him. I'm here to show you how terrifying the opponent you're going to face is. Our master said that you are a talent. If you are willing to submit to him and become his slave, he will let you live. Bullsh asterisk T. I don't believe that I can't kill you." Yang Cheng was furious. The heaven and earth restoration energy that he used this time was extremely powerful. It was like a tsunami, but it was concentrated in this small area. With a twist of his hand, a crushing force gripped the clone tightly. The speed this time was so fast that the clone did not even have the chance to react. Arg! After a heart-wrenching scream, the clone was squeezed into pieces again. Yang Cheng even squeezed a few times in the air to squeeze all the blood out. Then, he flung the blood onto the grass tens of meters away. Chapter 829. Yang Cheng had more or less figured out what was going on. Even though the clone said eternal life, it was definitely not that. After being shattered by Chun Xiaobei for the first time, the clone was reborn, but it was much weaker than before. This was also the reason why he couldn't even raise his speed to resist this time, and was pinched by him. In other words, if Chun Xiaobei killed him a few more times, even if he could be reborn a few more times, he would eventually be defeated. No matter how strong the opponent claimed that he would always believe that he was stronger than them. That was the truth that Yang Cheng had learned from countless battles. While Yang Cheng was deep in thought, the mysterious energy surged through the blood that was flung away. This time, the clone was recreated on a lawn that was tens of meters away. A glint of surprise flashed in Yang Cheng's eyes. This guy could be reborn as long as there was a piece of debris, even if it was just a drop of blood. Yang Cheng did not give him the chance to recreate. Once again, he bombarded the clone with the heaven and earth restoration energy. Bam! The blood man that was just recreated was blasted into pieces. The clone tried to use some mysterious energy to block the attack, but it was futile. Finally, Yang Cheng noticed that a trace of divine power flew out from the pile of blood. It seemed like it was going to dissipate in the area. Yang Cheng knew that it was the source of the clone's divine power. Even though it was not a complete soul, it was definitely the mark of a god. Without hesitation, the heaven and earth restoration energy surged forward and crushed the remnant soul like a tornado. This time, the clone could no longer be reborn. Yang Cheng harumphed coldly and returned to Anshin's room that had been destroyed. An Xian had long been frightened by the bloody scene to the point that her legs were weak. When she saw Yang Cheng coming up, she fell into the man's embrace as if she had softened. Yang Cheng walked forward and hugged the frightened woman. He sighed and said, "It's okay now. I'll make a trip to Beijing and kill those bastards. No one will disturb us then." Anshin asked worriedly, "Hubby, will it be dangerous? Don't you trust me?" Anshin shook his head, but his eyes were filled with worry. Yang Cheng smiled and stroked the woman's hair. "This house is ruined. If you want, why don't you live in the western suburbs where we live now? We can live together, and I won't have to go back and forth, right? There was a hint of joy in Anshin's eyes, but she pouted and said, "What if Sister Ruashi winks at me?" Yang Chung smiled bitterly. "Is Ruashi that scary? Why are you so timid every time you mention her?" "It's not that scary. I just feel cold," Anshin mumbled. Yang Chung didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He patted the woman's buttocks under her nightgown and said, "It's good to be more intimate. Actually, Ruashi is very soft-hearted. As long as you don't take it too seriously with her, she just has a personality that doesn't admit defeat. If you follow her, she won't do anything." Anexian thought for a moment and finally nodded. "Then I'll go and see which villas are vacant today. I'll move in once I'm satisfied. Let people repair the houses here and let the servants look after them." Yang Chung was also very satisfied with this result. It wasn't that he had to make the women stay together, but living close to each other would make him feel more at ease. After confirming that Anshin was fine, Yang Chung ordered the Sea Eagle warriors in the dark to continue protecting her, and then disappeared from the family's mansion. It seemed that Yin Buin had purposely let him know that he was playing tricks behind his back. Moreover, his mysterious power was indeed very strange. However, Yang Chung was not going to be afraid. Since Yin Buin was already trying to ride roughshod over him, he would not let Yin Buin down if he didn't smash Yin Buin into minced meat. At this critical moment, Yang Chung didn't care if using the heaven and earth restoration without restraint would attract the heavenly tribulation. After thinking for a while, he reappeared from Zhonghai to the mountains northwest of Yanjin. In the dense forest, the edge of the undulating hillside was separated by a barbed wire fence. There was only one road that extended from the city, but it was guarded by many checkpoints. The coordinates given by Hanya were near this hillside, but Yang Chung didn't see any laboratory. Just then, the sound of a few SUVs came from the foot of the hill. Yang Chung turned around and squinted his eyes. The person who got out of the car was someone he knew, Li Dun. The one-eyed man was wearing a camouflage vest and was fiddling with a black and gold military knife. He looked up and winked at Yang Chung, who was on the hill. Obviously, the security bureau had been keeping an eye on Yin Buin. The Li family also knew about Yang Cheng's actions, so they sent Li Dun here as soon as they saw him. Li Dun asked the soldiers to wait at the foot of the hill while he leaped into the air and arrived at Yang Cheng's location within 10 seconds. "Old Yang, you're amazing. You came all the way here from Zhonghai so quickly. TSK, TSK. If I could be as capable as you, I bet Tang XN would throw herself at me," Li Dun said lazily. Yang Chan smiled from the bottom of his heart when he heard this. "You haven't caught up yet. Sigh, I really don't know what's going on. I feel like she's interested in me, but she just won't say yes," Li Dun said in distress. Yang Chung tilted his head. "You came all the way here because you wanted to talk to me about you flirting with Tang Xian, right?" He, Li Dun chuckled for a while before saying seriously, "Can we not go in? Do you think I'll stop?" Yang Chung squinted his eyes. "You didn't find it, right? Look at the forest. If you can't find it, you can go back." Li Dun pointed at the mountains and plains. Yang Chung said nonchalantly, "If I can't find it, I'll destroy the mountain. I don't believe that I can't find that bastard's lab, even if I destroy the mountain. That's our military secret base. We invested a lot of money into it. If you destroy it, my father won't be able to explain it to the military," Li Dun said gloomily. "That's none of my business. If they have anything to say about it, they can come to me. Let me make this clear. Since Yin Buin is the troublemaker, I have to kill him. No one can stop me. I know your father asked you to come because he wants me to give you some face. But you should know that your face isn't worth that much," Yang Chung said coldly. Li Dun scratched his head helplessly. "This isn't a job for a human." "Fine, fine." The old man said that since Yin Buin has no choice but to be removed, we can't force you to do it. If you insist on killing Yin Buin, I'll bring you to the lab. But you better control yourself. The lab cost a lot of money to build." Yang Qing thought to himself, "You guys can't stop me at all. Lead the way." Li Dun didn't say anything else. With a few leaps, he ran over a hill and came to a higher hillside. He pointed at a rock wall and said, "This is the entrance. But because only Yin Buin has the remote control to open the lab, I can't open it for you. This door, it's up to you. Yang Chung frowned. He didn't expect Yin Buwen to have the lab all to himself. It showed how high his status was. He casually slapped the rock wall. Boom! With a loud bang, the seemingly ordinary rock rampart suddenly collapsed. This, Li Dun was shocked. Yang Chung looked at the scene in front of him with a gloomy expression. After the mountain wall collapsed, there was actually an incomparably huge pitch-black cave inside. The inside of the mountain had been hollowed out. Is this the lab? Yang Chung asked Li Dun suspiciously. Li Dun quickly waved his hand. Old Yang, I may work for the country, but I wouldn't lie to you. I may be stingy when it comes to treating people to meals, but I would never lie to my brothers. This really is the lab, but I don't know how it became an empty mountain. Damn it, don't you have your own informant? The lab is really here. Looking at Li Dun's anxious expression, Yang Chung believed him. If it wasn't for the fact that the laboratory was here, there was no other explanation for such a huge empty mountain. A shocking thought popped up in Yang Cheng's mind. Did he use the law of dimensions to move the entire lab away? Motherf asterisk Kerr. I was tricked by him. He already knew that we had found his location, so he sent one of his men to check me out. At the same time, he used the law of dimensions to move his lair somewhere else, and he made us come empty-handed. Yang Chun clenched his teeth and angrily punched the stone wall, causing a large piece of rock to collapse. Chapter 830. Li Dun's jaw dropped. No way, the Western gods have such insane spatial laws. You could do that too? Which gods did he hire to work for him? Yang Chung shook his head. This precise manipulation of spatial laws is much more difficult than destroying a large area of space. I'm afraid it's not something a single person can do. At least I can't do it. I've fought with one of the gods he cloned before. If his subordinates are all at that level, I'm guessing that he has at least 4 gods helping him. That's why he was able to move the laboratory so precisely without damaging the mountain. For 4 gods, Li Dun was stunned. Yang Chung sighed. Maybe even more. Li Dun was having trouble breathing. Don't tell me they all have your body and are exactly like you? Yang Chung glanced at him in annoyance. Do you think it feels good to crush myself? Crush? What do you mean? I don't want to explain. Yang Chung was a little annoyed. He pondered for a moment and said, where are the rest of the Yin family? Especially the head of the family, Yin Qingtian? Li Dun was stunned. Old Yang, are you going to kill Yin Buen's grandfather to vent your anger because you can't find him? If he doesn't come out, I'll kill his entire family. Yang Chung said coldly. Are you crazy? Yin Qingtian is the vice chairman. He's the core leader. You want to kill him? How big of a commotion would that cause? Li Dun yelled. Yang Chung snorted. Just make up a random reason for his death. Isn't that what you people do all the time? No, you're being too reckless. The Yin family is one of the top families in Beijing. They may not be as powerful as the 4 families, but they can't just kill people on a whim. Li Dun quickly waved his hands. Yang Chung raised an eyebrow. I didn't ask for your permission. I just asked for the address. Since you won't tell me, I'll look it up myself. With that, Yang Cheng's figure flashed, and he was already at the foot of the mountain. Another flash, and he was out of the mountains. Li Dun shouted from the mountainside. Old Yang, you son of a bitch. Don't cry and beg me to settle it for you. If something happens, where the hell did you go? Yang Chung, who was already on his way to Yin Jin, couldn't care less about Li Dun's screams. After Yang Chung dialed Hanya's number, he asked her to tell him the exact location of all the Yin family members. The ninjas of Yamada's sect were indeed excellent in investigation. All the tracking was flawless, and they quickly gave him the coordinates of several important figures of the Yin family. After Yang Chung confirmed that Yin Qingtian and the other important figures of the Yin family were at the Yin residence, he immediately rushed over. The Yin family's compound was located in the southwestern suburbs of Yinjing. It was located in the Old City area. The greenish-gray mansion covered an area of more than 2,000 square meters. These were old houses with hundreds of years of history. After several generations of renovations, they had regained their former glory because of the glory of the Yin family. A large number of Yin family guards were densely packed inside and outside the compound, controlling the security of the entire compound with almost no blind spots. When Yang Cheng mysteriously appeared in the front yard of the compound, all the guards nearby exclaimed in surprise. "Who's there?" Nearly 30 guards rushed over from all directions. Because the Yin family had the backing of a military factory, all the guards were well-equipped and were elites of the army. Yang Cheng ignored them and strode toward the main hall in front of him. 2 guards rushed forward without hesitation and tried to stop the sudden appearance of the man, but Yang Cheng casually threw them more than 10 meters away. The figure that was like a demon made all the guards feel like a heavy stone was pressing down on them. They wanted to shoot, but their hands started to tremble. Inside the main hall, a group of people who heard the commotion outside came out in a single file. Under the leadership of a gray-haired, vigorous old man who was over 50 years old, a group of middle-aged and young men and women walked more than 10 meters away from Yang Cheng. Yin Buin's younger brother, Yin Bushue, was also among them. When he saw Yang Cheng, he was a little excited and a little timid at the same time. The leading old man frowned, and a majestic aura suddenly rose. "You're Yang Cheng?" Yang Cheng said coldly. "You're Yin Qingtian?" Since you're a member of the Yang family, is this how Yang Gongming taught his grandson?" Yin Qingtian sneered. "I'm your elder. How dare you barge into my Yin family and call my name? What's the meaning of this? I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Let me ask you, where is your dog*T grandson, Yin Buin?" Yang Cheng asked with a murderous look in his eyes. Yin Qingtian was a little intimidated by Yang Cheng's terrifying aura, but he didn't show much of it. He said solemnly, "Why should I tell you? Don't be so full of yourself." Without saying a word, Yang Cheng waved his hand forward. Yin Bushue, who was originally hiding behind, flew directly into Yang Cheng's hand. His throat was grabbed, and he was lifted into the air. "If you continue to talk nonsense, I'll kill one of your grandsons. If you continue to say a few more words, I'll kill the rest of your family until you're the only one left. Let's see if you still want to talk," Yang Cheng said indifferently. Yin Bushue was lifted into the air, and it was difficult for him to breathe. All he could do was scream, but after a few screams, he started coughing loudly. Yin Qingtian was so angry that his face was trembling, but he looked at Yin Bushue worriedly. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's useless for you to ask me. Bushue has been missing for a long time. Because of this, I called for a meeting in my house today to discuss this matter. Even if you kill everyone, we won't know. If that's the case, I only have one way." Yang Cheng muttered to himself. While everyone was puzzled, they saw Yang Cheng throw Yin Bushue to the ground and stomp on him. "Ow!" Yin Bushue shrieked in pain. One of his legs had been broken by Yang Cheng. If you don't tell me, I'll keep stomping," Yang Cheng said indifferently. Shoot him dead," a fat middle-aged man shouted. As soon as he said that, the guards around him raised their guns and shot at Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng frowned slightly. The bullets turned into powder the moment they got close to his body. He reached out his hand and grabbed the fat man. With a wave of his hand, he threw the fat man into the air. The man screamed in horror and fell heavily to the ground. His head hit the ground from more than 20 meters in the air, and he died a horrible death. "Fourth uncle." A few people from the Yin family screamed in horror. Yin Qingtian looked at Yang Cheng, who did not change his expression. His face turned pale. You really are the devil in the rumors. How could you kill him just like that?" "He wanted to kill me first. Why can't I kill him?" Yang Cheng said, and stepped on Yin Bushue's other leg. Yin Bushue woke up from the pain. Grandpa, tell me where I am. This guy is crazy. Yin Bushue cried for his parents. Yin Qingtian curled his fingers and clenched his fists tightly. He took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I'll tell you." Yang Cheng smiled evilly. "That's right. We should have cooperated from the beginning. Buin mentioned before that he might go somewhere else for a while. Before Yin Qingtian could finish, a hoarse male voice came from the air. "Grandpa, you betrayed me so easily." It's disappointing. As soon as the voice came out, the Yin family was shocked. Yang Cheng, on the other hand, was fully focused. After a moment of distortion in the air, Yin Buin, who was wearing a white coat and had long hair, slowly descended with a strange and ferocious smile. When Yin Buin landed on the ground, everyone subconsciously took a few steps back. For the people present, Yang Cheng and Yin Buin found it hard to accept. Brother, brother, save me, save me. Yin Bushue weakly stretched out his hand and shouted. Yin Buin glanced at him and said, "You're just a burden. According to the theory of evolution, you should have died long ago." What? Yin Buin sighed and suddenly rushed toward Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng stood still and waited for Yin Buin to come forward. However, Yin Buin did not attack. Instead, he stepped on Yin Bushue's head after arriving in front of Yang Cheng. Bang! Like a watermelon breaking, Yin Bushue's head was directly crushed. When the dark red and milky white viscous liquid appeared in front of everyone except for the group of people who were scared silly screamed. Yin Bushue would never have thought that his short life would end under the feet of his biological brother. This scene surprised Yang Cheng. He did not expect that Yin Buin's twisted mentality would allow him to kill his biological brother so easily. I'm not asking you. What are you doing?" Yin Qingtian screamed at the top of his lungs. Yin Buin turned around and spread out his hands with an indifferent expression. "I said that trash should be eliminated. Grandpa, I'm just letting this useless idiot leave the natural world as soon as possible." He's your biological brother. Your biological brother." Yin Qingtian staggered and could not stand steadily. Haha, biological brother. Yin Buin looked up to the sky and laughed, but his laughter stopped abruptly. "As long as the Yin family has me, Yin Buin, it's enough. What biological brother? They're all trash. I was just threatened by an outsider, and he had to reveal my whereabouts. What's the point of having such a relative? You're just a bunch of people who are dragging me down. Instead of wasting my time to deal with you, it's better for all of you to die." "Yin Buin, you've gone too far." A middle-aged elder of the Yin family reprimanded him. Yin Buin snorted coldly, and his figure flashed again. This time, he appeared next to a guard. After Yin Buin broke the guard's neck, he took the guard's automatic rifle, raised it with one hand, and fired wildly at Yin Qingtian and the others. Two. Everyone from the Yin family, including Yin Qingtian, was buried in the rain of bullets. The Yin family had no chance to escape. Yin Buin was like a bloodthirsty demon. He would not stop until everyone's head was pierced through. He laughed loudly as he fired wildly. A group of Yin family guards ran far away with weak legs. The situation was out of control and the Yin family's internal strife. There was no reason for them to stay here. When Yin Qingtian's head was pierced by the bullet, blood flowed down from his aged face. He watched helplessly as his grandson, whom he valued the most in his life, fired a gun at everyone in his family. His eyes were filled with shock and horror, and there was no reaction at all. When all the important figures of the Yin family were dead, Yin Buin threw the gun away out of boredom. He yawned and turned around to grin at Yang Cheng. "All right, it's quiet now. I've been waiting for this day for a long time."